time of war. I smoked 2 joints before I smoked 2 joints, and then I smoked 2 more.
That may or may not have been a request. Let's call it a suggestion as we begin this show on Monday morning, the 20th of April, also known as 420. You see, if you know, you know. And that is Sublime with Smoke 2 Joints to start our show on this 420. True story. Many years ago at a radio station not all that far away, I was working in music radio doing an afternoon show. And my co-host and I, on the 20th of April, annually, we made a tradition of this. At 4:20 in the afternoon, we would quietly, subtly just have a song like One Love appear on the radio. And the phones would light up. People would call in. They were so excited. Oh, I love what you guys are doing. You're playing a 420 song on 420. And we're like, what do you mean? That was just the next song that was coming up on our music playlist on this particular day. Of course, it wasn't. We did what we did with intent. Just for those who celebrate, happy 420. And by the way, if it is the sort of thing that you celebrate, you might be interested in learning that waking and baking here in Ontario may soon be a thing. That's right. You can wake and bake if you wake up around 7 a.m. because apparently our provincial government here in Ontario is seeking feedback on a proposal to allow authorized cannabis stores to open 2 hours earlier. So why wait till 9 to get what you crave? Why not wake and bake at Ontario cannabis retailers starting at 7 a.m.? We'll see how the public consultation goes in that regard. Sublime and Smoke 2 Joints to start our show together on this Monday morning, the 20th of April, 420. How are you enjoying the... What is this anyway that we would call the snow flurries that were falling heavily enough moments ago to virtually accumulate on the ground? We'll look out the windows at the roof of this building, and you can see the snow starting to pile up a little bit. Rosie and I, we needed some time to get reacquainted yesterday because we had been apart for quite some time as I was on the road in Sault Ste. Marie last week, and what a blur it really turned out to be with the trip to the Sioux, because you take a long time getting up there, and then you play a couple of games, and you're up there for 4 days, and then you come back home, and right away you're playing another game. And I will not tell a lie. I was about as lazy gets on Saturday. Not doing a whole lot was this old fella. But on Sunday, Rosie and I got out for a really nice long walk together. It was beautiful. Maybe the weather was keeping people indoors. Maybe you just had other things to do. But it was so quiet out there. It was really enjoyable. But we also, I think, experienced 3 different seasons while we walked. I was leaving the neighborhood, and my neighbor was coming home, and she rolled down her window and yelled out at me, "Why are you wearing a winter hat on April the 19th? I said, because it's cold out here. Yes, I had my toque on. But at different points in that walk, I took my toque off. And then I put my toque back on again. And then I took my toque off because at some points it was, I don't know, some kind of precipitation was falling out of the sky. In fact, our buddy Kitchener Cooney over at Environment Canada told me there's a name for this stuff. It was called Graupel, Graupel. Graupel is what was falling from the sky. Sure, it looked like snow, maybe a little bit of hail. I don't know. But we got some of that while we walked yesterday. We got the cloudy, gray skies of fall, and we got sunshine and what felt like the mild temperatures of spring. We got to experience all of that as we took our walk through the neighborhood yesterday. So anyway, it was quite the experience. I hope you withstood it on your end, but I'm not even joking. One day I'm saying to my beloved, geez, it's almost it's almost lawn mowing time around here. And the next day, it's, well, groppling, whatever the heck a grapple is. Great to be back in studio with you on this Monday morning. I enjoy the opportunity. I'm still fascinated by the technology that allows me to work when I'm not in the studio and have conversations with you. Never would I ever have believed as a young man starting in this business, a younger man starting in this business many a decade ago, that I would one day be able to do a show from a hotel room in Sault Ste. Marie or in Saginaw, which is where we've been over the last month or so traveling with the Kitchener Rangers. But I never would have believed that all I would need is something called a laptop, because laptops weren't a thing really when I started out in this business. The internet wasn't really a thing. You give me a laptop, you give me a Wi-Fi connection, you give me a microphone, and I can do a show from pretty much anywhere. Still blows my mind. But it is nice to be back where I belong, which is in this studio with all of the creature comforts. And be warned, among those creature comforts is the ability to answer and then hang up on people who phone the show. So I have all the control now. If you want to get out of hand, I can hang up in the blink of an eye and the conversation will be over. Not that you would ever make me do that. I just wanted you to know that I now have that power back at my fingertips.
1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 20th of April. Number one, Statistics Canada says the annual rate of inflation jumped more than half a percentage point to 2.4% in March as the war in Iran sent fuel costs soaring. The agency says March's 21.2% monthly increase in the price of gasoline was the largest on record. Number two, a federal pause on some fuel taxes is now in effect in response to soaring prices due to the war in Iran. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced last week a pause on gasoline and diesel excise taxes until Labor Day. The Liberals say it's a prudent way to tame prices at the pumps at a cost of roughly $2.4 billion. Since when? Question. Excuse me, Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter, I got a question here in the back. When did $2.4 billion in spending become prudent? Like, that's money we borrow that we have to... prudent. Listen, Prime Minister Carney, sir, I think you and I differ on the definition of prudent. Number three on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. Voting starts today on a 5-year contract agreement between Canada Post and postal workers. You know we still have a Canada Post thing, right? And that they still can't get along, or as my friend's parents used to say, they're not drinking tea. Like, come on with your coming on. Anyway, yeah, voting starts today. 5-year contract agreement. This is perfect. Both sides have agreed to not engage in any strike or lockout activity while the ratification votes are cast. We're talking about 55,000 employees here who are represented by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, and they've got until the end of May to cast their vote after 2 years of sparring between the Crown Corporation and the union over wages and structural changes to the service. Number 4, Premier Doug Ford says Ontario is reversing course and will sell the $29 million private jet the province bought for him. The move comes just days after the purchase of the 2016 Bombardier Challenger 650 jet was revealed on Friday, sparking a wave of backlash from critics who called it a waste of money. Ford acknowledged the criticism in a statement on Sunday, saying now is not the right time for the government to spend money on a plane, and the province is working with Bombardier and other partners to sell it. Okay, wait, Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter, I got a question here in the back. I got 2 questions this time, okay? 2, when is the good time to spend $29 million on a plane? When is the good time to do that exactly? $29 million for your own private plane. The good time for that would be when, sir? And the other question I have is, if you bought it for $29 million and you drove it off the lot, how much did it depreciate before you sold it back again? Like, come on with your coming on. What are we doing around here? My goodness gracious. Number 5, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. The Kitchener Rangers will open their Western Conference Final versus Windsor on Friday night at the Memorial Auditorium. Game 2 will go Sunday, and note the start time of 6 p.m. Sunday. Games 3 and 4 will be in Windsor next Monday and Wednesday. And the KW Titans are one win away from capturing the Basketball Super League title. The Titans edged the Sudbury Five yesterday, 95-92, taking a 2-0 series lead in the championship. Game 3 goes tomorrow night in Sudbury, and if the Titans win, the title is theirs.
You go to the box, you feel shame.
I think Ontario Premier Ford should go to the box and feel shame for the $29 million jet. But don't worry, everything's fine now. He's gonna sell it back at what kind of loss, we're not sure. Maybe he can sell it back at a premium because it's used by the Premier. I have no idea. But I am curious as to at what time it would be a wise purchase, a prudent, let's use Prime Minister Carney's words here, a prudent purchase. Spend $30 million on a plane. What, you can't fly coach like the rest of us? Every time this show starts, every morning, 9 o'clock, phone lines open to you at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Our good friend Francis is with us early this Monday morning. Good morning, Francis.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. How are you?
Very good. I got some great history for you. Talking about the Spitfire that they're removing there.
Yes, sir.
I worked at a company. The owner used to fly a Spitfire, and I when I drove with him, he always sat very close to the left corner of his big Ford Marquis, and it was as if he was looking out the corner of the window. So one day I asked him, "Why do you drive like that?" He says, "I used to fly the Spitfire in World War II."
There you go. So the way he flew the Spitfire is the way he drives his car?
Is the way it seemed to, he always leaned to the side. I thought, like I said, I asked him, and he says, well, he flew the Spitfires in World War II. And so I thought, wow. And this was in the 60s, 70s that I worked at this particular company.
There you go. Interesting.
Would you believe fixing manual adding machines and typewriters and stuff like that?
I remember the old typewriter, Francis. I sure do.
So God bless. Have a great day.
Thank you, Francis. You too. I knew we were going to finish with a God bless, which just centers me. It puts me in the right frame of mind. Speaking of typewriters, I was such a poor typist. Well, I mean, can I backtrack that? Can I be boastful about my poor typing skills? Listen, I passed. We had to do keyboarding in one of our college classes, and we had to do, was it 20 or 30? I think it was 30 words a minute in order to pass the course. And I could still do, and I still to this day, home row, schmome row. I'm a two-finger, I'm a hunter and pecker. I type with my index fingers and my index fingers only. But I remember taking a typing class in high school where they would put the piece of paper over your hands. So, put it into the typewriter so you can't see the keys, and you get on a home row and you're supposed to type and blah, blah, blah. And I learned all of that then, and I'm pretty sure I got to 20 words a minute there. I think that's what we had to do. Anyway, it didn't change the fact that my mother, bless her sweet soul, who was a very skilled typist, would type for me all of my high school essays. True story. I wrote them. I wrote them, and she had to decipher. She had to. It was like it wasn't dictation. I would write them long form, and she would transfer them from my written pages into typed pages so that I could submit them in typed form and not waste all that extra time. I did the work in writing the papers. My mom quickly and very speedily and expertly typed them out for me. That should be the title of a book, How I Got Through High School with my mom's help as a typist. So is Premier Ford going to survive this latest mess that he created for himself? It was 100% an own goal, was it not? We've bought a private jet, now we're selling the private jet. Good on you, I suppose, for reading the room, but at what point did it seem like a good idea to spend the $29 million in the first place? That is the question I have this morning for you. And listen, I'm not as critical as some of Premier Ford's leadership, but this might be the proverbial straw that breaks this camel's back. Like, what are you doing over here? Certainly nothing that a conservative premier would do, because typically conservatives are, fiscally conservative. And this premier is anything but that. So this may have been the last bit of my patience with the antics of this particular premier. There's just, I don't know that there's any excuse for this. At no point should the conversation have even gotten around to, do you know what we really need for the Premier of Ontario is a private plane? Yeah, it's great that you've reversed course on it, but the fact that you thought it was okay, like this was the everyman's premier, wasn't it? We're going to end the gravy train. We're going to flip hamburgers and hot dogs. We're going to cut expenses. We're going to do all of these things because, Doug Ford is just like you, except he flies in a private jet and you don't. This is a bridge too far for me, but I'm always interested how you feel about these things. Your morning wake-up call is coming up. Feel free to share your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. How long was the music on for? Was the music on for long enough that the boss is going to send me an email? I got an email like that once from the boss. She said, sometimes the music plays for a really long time. And I was honest. I said, well, because sometimes I'm not ready. And that's why I need the music to get ready. But this time I was running down the hall and it's even still cold. Now the question is, do I crack it open? Somebody brought beer. I'll get to that story in just a moment. But I was asking you before the break about Ontario Premier Doug Ford's doofus move to buy a private jet. Yeah, you can reverse course on that. But at what point did you think it was a good idea to buy the jet? And, by how much does it depreciate? How many millions do we lose out on here as Ontarians because you did something you just shouldn't have done? Let's go to the phones, hear from you this morning. Jason, good morning.
Morning, Mike. I think sometimes it seems like he just does stuff that are not popular, greenbelt, and then he reverses course so he can say to you, hey, you know what? I'm listening to you. I understand. I made a mistake, but I hear what you're saying. I hear your concerns, and I'm going to go back on. I'm going to sell the plane, or I'm going to reverse course on the greenbelt, just so he can say, hey, look, I'm listening to you people. I get it.
I think
that's my thought.
Well, that's the glass half full way of looking at it for sure. So, yes, this is somebody who's listening. He hears the criticism. He hears the blowback. But I got to put myself, like, as somebody who's supposed to be the everyman's premier, the every person's premier, I don't understand how. And if you're ending the gravy train and you're finding efficiencies and you're flipping hamburgers and hot dogs and reducing expenses, how do you justify a $30 million expenditure for a plane?
Well, I don't think you can justify it at all.
Yeah.
We have people living on streets, people who have no food, and the premier's looking to spend $30 million on a plane. It's like, yeah. I was left speechless when I read it, but hopefully he sells it and gets a good buck for it. We can put back into our things that we really need in the province.
Yeah, Jason, appreciate the call. Good to hear from you this morning. This would be another interesting follow-up to the story. So when the plane is sold, and truly, by how much did it depreciate? Like, what kind of a loss did we take on the purchase and then the sale? But two, where does that money go? Because this is the thing, and this is what drives... I know, I probably spend way too much energy on this, but I've always wondered, I've joked before, that you go to any LCBO on any given Saturday and watch the traffic in and out of that building, and you can't tell me that there's not enough collected in alcohol, sin taxes, to fund all the things we need to fund in this province, for crying out loud. But that's just me joking around a little bit. But I really do think I spend way more energy than I should wondering, like, where it all goes. Where does all the money go? Because we don't really get a line-by-line accounting of all of this. So from somewhere, from some fund, this $30 million roughly was redirected to buy the plane. So when you sell the plane and you get back the whatever tens of millions of dollars, where does that go then? What programs, what important things in the province is that money then supporting? I think that would be really interesting because apparently you had it to spend on a plane. You took it from somewhere. When you get that money back, where's it going? Curious. Phil in Stratford, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Here's a local link to that to the Spitfire aircraft. I had elderly neighbors, and I was in the house once, and they had a picture on their living room wall framed of a Spitfire aircraft. And I said, what's that all about? Well, during the Second World War, the woman of the house went to work at the Kroller Furniture Factory here in Stratford, and they made the wicker seats for the aircraft.
That's fantastic.
And anybody who was part of that war effort, because all the men were gone to war, the women were given one of these pictures in recognition of their contribution.
Phil, that's a great story, and I appreciate you sharing it with us this morning. It also makes me feel pretty good because I knew, at least I believed, that the story that we're going to share, the conversation that we're going to have just after the 9:30 news about that Second World War Spitfire, the replica that's been sitting on top of KW Surplus on Victoria Street in Kitchener for as long as I can remember. Apparently, it's been there about 30 years now, and it's being removed today. But why and where is it going? I think it's a really interesting story. I had a feeling that you would be very invested in it. Francis called earlier about it. Phil's got a story connected to it now with a local tie. Save it for just after 9:30, and we can talk more about that iconic, I would say, replica Spitfire plane that's sitting on top of KW Surplus, but in the process of being removed right now. I think it's great. I just want to give a quick shout out to my old friend, Jeff Budd. Yes, that Budd of Budd's department store from downtown Kitchener. The Budd family owned and operated that store for nearly 90 years in downtown Kitchener. It was one of my favorites. We shopped there when I was a kid. My mom would always take us. We loved the pneumatic tubes where the invoices would be moved back and forth. But really, it was one of those stores that everybody went to in times gone by in the city of Kitchener. And even when I grew up and became an adult, am I an adult yet? Have I grown up? Anyway, I would go to Bud's and buy a new tie for the start of every Kitchener Rangers season. I got to know the family. I loved everything about it. Well, there's a small craft brewery. You may have seen the signs when you're going to Kitchener Rangers games because it's right across the street from the Memorial Auditorium on East Avenue. The little brewery's called 'Twas Now. They operate out of their house. And they've made a new light lager called Bud's Light Lager. Bud's as in the old Bud's department store. And Jeff Budd, a member of that family, brought me, and it's still cold, a can of my very own Bud's Light Lager. I will not drink it on the air, but I'm very grateful to Jeff for bringing it by. And kudos to you, 'Twas Now, for a little throwback with the Bud's Light. I love it. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Well, you've been hearing Christine Clark and Mark Douglas talk about it throughout our morning news today here on 570 News Radio. And the work is underway as we speak. It's a busy day on Victoria Street at KW Surplus. And I'm sure you know that Spitfire plane that sits atop that building on Victoria Street and has for the better part of 30 years now. It's kind of iconic, isn't it? You know you've arrived or are approaching KW Surplus when you see that full-size model plane sitting atop the store. Well, the business has now been sold, and the former owner is donating this plane to the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. And there is a plan for its future. Let's talk more about that with Terry Scott, who's a public relations chair at the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. Terry, good morning.
Good morning.
What can you tell me about this Spitfire plane itself, the model that has sat there atop KW surplus for these many decades now? What's the significance of this particular plane?
Well, the Spitfire was really the aircraft that turned the tide of the war during the Second World War, with Great Britain and the Allies using the Spitfire to defeat the Luftwaffe. And that really was the change, was instrumental in allowing the Allies to overcome the Germans and really, become victorious in the Second World War. This particular aircraft is a replica aircraft. It's about 90% the size of a full-scale Spitfire. As you said, Mike, it's been adorning the KW surplus building for the better part of 30 years. And this morning it was removed. It is currently on a trailer, and crews from the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association are removing the wings so that it can be transported back down to the association's headquarters in Tillsonburg, where it will be fully restored and become part of a memorial park that is being created at CYTB, the Tillsonburg Regional Airport.
What is involved in removing this almost full-size model replica plane from the roof of that building, Terry?
Well, we saw it firsthand this morning, Mike. It's only been off the podium, the pedestal, and down onto the trailer, maybe for the past half hour, 40 minutes. Fortunately, the weather cooperated. It was a little frosty here this morning, but we had the giant crane lift the aircraft off of the pedestal. Once it was unbolted from that from that pedestal, and some of the bolts, as you can imagine, were a little rusty, so they had their work cut out for them. But they've done it. The aircraft is now on the trailer, and the crews are going over it, removing certain aspects of it, and obviously the wings will have to be removed before we transport it down to Tillsonburg.
What happens next? Once you get it to Tillsonburg, Terry, what is the next plan?
Well, the plan is to repaint it and make any necessary repairs. We do have to make some repairs to the aircraft, to the model. It'll be repainted in the colors that were flown by Flight Lieutenant Charlie Fox during the Second World War. You did make mention of that previously. With us here this morning was Lance Russworm. Lance is a very accomplished artist and a fellow who worked with KW Surplus, specifically the Spitfire Emporium here at KW Surplus over the years. Lance was depicted, he created a painting depicting Charlie Fox and his wingmen swooping down over a German staff car during the Second World War, which turned out to be the staff car of Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, who was pretty much Hitler's right-hand man. And when Charlie attacked and strafed the car, it went off the road, and Rommel was severely injured. It basically put him out of the war.
What happens when you get this to the Tillsonburg Regional Airport and the new memorial garden that you're putting together through the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association? What's that memorial garden all about?
Well, the memorial garden is designed to pay tribute to Canadian Armed Forces, the RCAF, the Coast Guard, Merchant Marines, and the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. It's kind of an all-encompassing memorial garden that we have planned in cooperation with a number of other groups and certainly the town of Tillsonburg. It will also honor, as we mentioned, Charlie Fox, Flight Lieutenant Charlie Fox, who was a one-time president of the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association, along with another one-time president, Canadian astronaut Bjarne Tryggvason, who was president of the Harvard Association at the time of his passing 4 years ago.
What's it like, Terry, when you get a call from somebody like Ray Whitmore, who had sold the KW Surplus business and said, you know what, I want to donate this replica to your association? What's your reaction when you get a call like that?
Well, we were overwhelmed, but Ray Whittemore has been a long-time member of the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association, a very generous member as well. And when he said that he was going to sell the KW surplus business, a lot of people thought, well, what's going to happen to the Spitfire, that iconic Spitfire? And Ray assured us that it would be in good hands, that he was going to donate it to the Harvard Association to become part of this memorial park that's in the planning stages. And it will certainly be the centerpiece. It'll be the eye-catching centerpiece. And again, it will be the iconic Spitfire that has adorned this building at KW for almost 30 years. It will become the iconic centerpiece of a memorial park at Tillsonburg Regional Airport.
Will that memorial park be open to the public, Terry, or will we only see it when we're, at the regional airport to board a flight or anything like that?
Oh no, it'll be there. You'll see it as soon as you enter the airport grounds. It'll be front and center, right between the airport terminal, which is a fairly small terminal, and the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association hangar, one of our hangars. It'll be there. You can't miss it once it's all completed, and we're really looking forward to that day.
I can only imagine that you are, for sure. At what point are you in planning this memorial garden? Is this Spitfire going to be the centerpiece of what you're putting together there?
It will be, but there will be other elements as well. There will be a couple of memorial benches. There will actually be 3 memorial benches from the representing the founding fathers of the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. The Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association is 41 years old this year. It's an all-volunteer group, and we've done remarkable things over the years in keeping history alive with the Harvard and other aircraft that were used as part of the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan during the Second World War and continue to be used by the RCAF up until the early 60s. As I say, we have these memorial benches which will be in tribute to our founding fathers, namely Norm Beckham, Bob Hewitt, and Len Fallowfield, 3 gentlemen who have all since departed. We lost Leonard. He was the last one to leave us last fall. And their families have all donated these memorial benches, which will be part of the memorial park as well.
You mentioned earlier, Terry, that it was a little frosty this morning, but the weather generally cooperated. And as you'd expect over all of these many decades, some of the bolts, holding that plane to that pedestal might have needed a little bit of work. But as far as the process goes, this was no small undertaking. How would you describe the effort to get that plane removed and onto this flatbed?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a Herculean effort, but I mean, I had a great vantage point, Mike. I was able to stand on the ground and film the whole thing for the archives for the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. But no, we had a very dedicated group here, along with folks from the engineering company, the crane company. There's a number of people that we have to acknowledge in making this happen, along with the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. We've received generous support from a number of groups, including the Canadian Military History Club in Tillsonburg, Norwich Paving Company, which will do excavation and concrete work, Dave Hewitt for engineering and transportation of the removal of the Spitfire. Just a whole bunch of folks that have come together to make this dream become a reality down the road. And fortunately, the weather cooperated. It's frosty this morning. I mean, my hands are cold, but I'm in my car. I'm in my car now, talking to you from. I was just inside KW Surplus a moment ago, speaking with Ray Whittemore, who's being interviewed by our friends from CTV right now. And I'm watching as the crews are still working on the aircraft, on the replica. They haven't untethered it yet from the crane. But that will be happening shortly once they get the wings off and are able to transport it.
The loss to our skyline on Victoria Street is certainly your gain at the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association and this memorial garden at Tillsonburg Regional Airport. Terry, I appreciate you making time for the show this morning. Thanks for being here.
Mike, my pleasure. And folks, don't worry. The Spitfire is not disappearing. You can eventually, down the road, you can come down and see it again at Tillsonburg Regional Airport. We'd love to have you down and visit the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association as well.
I have no doubt that many will take you up on that offer, Terry. Thanks again for being here this morning.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, sir. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye for now.
Terry Scott is the Public Relations Chair with the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. And just like that, if you were driving on Victoria Street yesterday, you would have seen the plane still sitting there atop KW Surplus. As of this moment, it is no longer. It has been removed. It is onto a flatbed for ultimate transportation now to the Tillsonburg Regional Airport to become really the focal point of a new memorial garden as part of the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. A long-standing, since 1997, that plane has sat atop KW Surplus in Kitchener, and today it comes down. Definitely a change to our skyline in Kitchener. And I used the word, I hesitated earlier this morning, but then thought, no, I think it's absolutely fair to refer to this as iconic because it is certainly noticeable. It has been an eye-catching piece of the streetscape on Victoria in Kitchener for these many decades. And now it is no longer. But I think it's a really neat way for this story to evolve. It's perhaps the end of a chapter, but the new chapter begins when it arrives at the Tillsonburg Regional Airport and becomes a part of this memorial garden. Does it evoke any memories for you, this World War II Spitfire fighter? We've had a couple of calls already, Francis and Phil, sharing stories, connections to our community, etc. Any other iconic pieces of our streetscape or skyline that still stand out to you that maybe you remember from the past? I mean, I'm thinking of that Weston's Bread sign, right, that still is there. How about the old Lulu's Roadhouse sign, which, of course, is no longer. The Wiener Beacon, as we call it, that Schneider sign out on the 401, that's still there. But really interesting is it's the evolution. But in this particular case, while the Spitfire will no longer sit atop KW Surplus, it's a pretty neat next step or next chapter in the story that lies ahead. Chris is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. I love being a Mike's Force for good 181 member.
Welcome aboard. Farwell's Force member number. You think it's number 181?
I think so.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
I used to work at Saturn Saw by Zuzu, where Tesla is, and actually watched that plane get put up there.
No way.
Yeah, I still remember that it was, I'd only been working there a few weeks, and here we are, all the mechanics standing at the end of the garage just watching the happenings.
You know you're dating yourself by saying that, right? Because if you were working there when it was going up back in 1997.
My kids think I'm old already. It's okay.
Chris, not only do you remember that story, your memory is also good on Farwell's Force member number 181. I just consulted my list. You are right there, my friend.
Perfect. Hey, speaking of these iconic locations, there's an artist who does T-shirts, he has a book, and he does renderings of all of these things. You can usually catch him at the Kitchener Farmers Market on Saturdays.
Trevor Clare.
Yes.
Yes, the guy's great.
I bought his Snyder sign, Almost Home. And I can tell you, when I wear that in public, people stop and they absolutely go nuts for it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, appreciate you. Thanks for the call. Thanks for the memory. Trevor Clare, a local artist. It is his painting, his representation of a crowd at a Kitchener Rangers game that is on the wall of the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, where the marquee is now, where you would walk in to go to the box office. That is a Trevor Clare piece that you see every time you go in. And yes, he's done many. We have 4 or 5. 4 for sure. Maybe I've lost track. Trevor has done so many iconic, important, significant local buildings. We have the old Farwell's Super Variety print. We just got the one of the Kitchener Market, which looks fantastic. It incorporates some old with the new. I mean, anyway, he does all kinds of great stuff. And as you heard Chris say, he's got the T-shirt with the Almost Home. Again, I've always called it the Wiener Beacon. I don't know about you, but that Schneider sign out there on the 401. Nice to hear from Farwell's Force member number 181 on our show this morning. The World War II Spitfire fighter plane has been removed from the roof of KW Surplus. It's the end of this chapter, but the plane is being transported to the Tillsonburg Regional Airport, where it will form part of a memorial garden with the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. Does that evoke any memories for you? The old Spitfire fighter plane, our history, veterans in our community, maybe somebody that you knew that flew one of those planes at one time, once upon a time. And of course, as we lose a piece of our streetscape and skyline here in Kitchener, does it evoke any memories of those elements from a bygone era that used to be there that you no longer see? Gosh, some of them have been gone for so long that, I don't know, you almost forget that they were there at one point. I still remember if you drove out King Street East and you looked over, so you're heading King Street East towards Cambridge, towards Sports World now, and you'd look off to your left and you could see the big red and white slides at the old Eaton Putt, right? You sat in a burlap sack and down those slides you went. That was a little bit of the skyline in Kitchener many, many moons ago. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
It'll be the eye-catching centerpiece, and again, it will be the iconic Spitfire that has adorned this building at KW for almost 30 years. It will become the iconic centerpiece of a memorial park at Tillsonburg Regional Airport.
Gone from the roof of KW Surplus in Kitchener, on its way to the Tillsonburg Regional Airport to be the centerpiece of that memorial garden for the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. It's the Second World War Spitfire plane, almost full-scale model, removed from the roof of KW Surplus this morning, having been donated to the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. Just before our 10 a.m. update in the 570 News Center. Let's get back to the phones. Walter is with us. Good morning, Walter.
Good morning, Mike. Yeah, you already mentioned, one of the things that I was thinking about was Lulu's, obviously, and
sure.
That brings back memories because my uncle had the contract to actually put the suspended acoustic ceiling and the floor tiles in the original Kmart.
Oh, nice.
So I was in there when they were doing that as a young fellow. But I'll tell you another one that we used to go to. I come over from Guelph all the time. Was out in Breslau. Now, I think the last it was I think it was called the Challenger.
It was the Challenger. Yes, yes.
And it had the big space shuttle on the roof.
Yes, good memory of that one.
And I can't remember what it was called, before that, but my dad told me that they used to go there when he was a young man, and it was called the Hawk Nest, that Ronnie Hawkins used to play there all the time. And this is way back in the 50s, I guess. And so there was a few memories that you jogged on me there this morning, Mike, but I'll let you go, man. Hey, take care.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Walter. Good to hear from you. I love jogging those memories. This one jogged one for me, thinking of that plane coming off the roof of that building on Victoria Street. It's been there as long as I can remember. And I guess I can only remember back to 1997. But, there was another one, that rocket ship, like a model of a rocket ship outside a motel or hotel on Hespeler Road, was it? Somewhere in Cambridge. Anyway, I'm just going off the top of my head here, but when Walter brought up the Challenger in Breslau, that bar and restaurant with the replica space shuttle above it. Wild stuff. The skyline, it be a-changing. Time marches on. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Well, a local Indigenous land trust has acquired its first parcel of land returned by a group supporting mental health and housing in what's being described as a meaningful act of reconciliation. Here to help us understand more about it is Eric Phillip, who's the CEO of Thresholds Homes and Supports. Eric, good morning.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks very much for making the time. What can you tell us about this parcel of land in Guelph?
Perfect. So the parcel of land is at 87 Highland Avenue. It's 11 acres of forest land right at the end of a road. It's fairly close to downtown, about 4 or 5 minutes away from downtown Guelph. It's mostly forest with some wetland attached. It's a great place for Indigenous culture and Indigenous peoples to, have autonomy over practicing their cultural integrity.
You, as Thresholds Homes and Supports, had owned this land and were able to work out this arrangement where it is being transferred to Crow Shield Lodge. Is that how it works?
Yes, it's a beautiful partnership. We are not caretakers of land. We're caretakers of human beings. And so we are looking for an Indigenous partner to take this parcel of land, protect it, and care for it. And so Crow Shield Lodge was able to step up, and they were a perfect partner to have this relationship with. Why
do this with the land, Eric? Why not use it to build more supportive housing or something like that?
Hey, it's a good question. So reconciliation is a part of our mandate. It's our commitment to our relationship with Indigenous peoples. And so we can do both things. We can build affordable housing, which we're doing. We're building at 667 Victoria Road in Kitchener. And we can give land back to Indigenous peoples so they can protect their culture. This land is perfect for reconciliation because it is dedicated forest land. It does need to be protected, and it's not developable. And so, we can work in both worlds in a way that makes sense.
What was involved with making this partnership or this land transfer come together or happen?
Yeah, so after we were able to secure the land, we went through a fairly long process. I would say almost a year and a half with the city and the Committee of Adjustment and working with the local community to sever the parcel to make it available to be transferred to Crow Shield Lodge. So that took a really, really long time. We went through a lot of obstacles. As you know, we've talked about it before. But in the end, we got there, and really that's all that matters.
How did you overcome those obstacles? Because I know some of them were resistance from the neighborhood where this will all be happening.
Yeah, I think, and you would speak to this as well, if we just stopped working every time someone told us to or said no or said you shouldn't, we would never get anywhere at all. So, we have to persevere. We have to trust that we work in a way that aligns with our values and our commitment to partnerships. And also, when we engage with the local community and the broader Guelph area, there was a lot of misinformation about this work in terms of both mental health and Indigenous relationships. And once we kind of got the noise out of the way and just started talking about things in a good way, in an honest way, we made huge progress, and the community has been generally very supportive of the work.
I recall one of those concerns, Eric, being that this land then would become a glorified encampment, if you will, where people will be living there permanently. And that's not going to be the case, correct?
No, that's not going to be the case. And the last thing we want to do is silence people's opinions. We want to encourage discussion. Crow Shield Lodge is an organization that protects land. It means they take care of it. They practice their culture on that land. They bring people out to the land, to teach them about Indigenous culture in a way that's beautiful, and really important to preserve. So it's not in all related to encampments.
What do you envision happening on this land now moving forward?
So this is the best part about reconciliation. It's not up to me to go through this process. We just work in partnership. So, we trust that Crow Shield Lodge is going to work in a way that is committed to their values and their culture. And they do that with autonomy. So, the best part about this work is that we get to work in a way that's trusting to our relationship. And I have total faith that Crow Shield Lodge is going to continue to practice in a way that is in the benefit of Indigenous peoples.
On the side of Thresholds Homes and Supports, you mentioned a build on Victoria Road. Tell me more about the work that you do at Thresholds.
Yeah, so Thresholds supports individuals with severe and persistent mental health issues who are over the age of 18. We support about 1,000 people a year. We're the largest mental health and housing provider in Waterloo Region, and we're always building. We're looking to construct about 28 units on Victoria, which will also be 50% dedicated to Indigenous peoples who are living with severe and persistent mental health issues. We have about 400 scattered site units throughout the Kitchener area, and we also have crisis beds that are available. We've literally, it's the best job in the world. I love it. I work with the coolest people in the world, and I'm very lucky to be in this sector. It is a great community to work in. The Waterloo Region, Wellington community is fantastic.
I know that over the course of this past winter, you were able to help out in Kitchener when it came to offering a bit of a warming space because the winter weather can be so brutal. How are we doing in the space, Eric? I feel from the outside looking in like it must feel sometimes like you're drowning because you talk about what you have accomplished at Threshold Homes and Supports, but it seems there's always a need for more than you can possibly provide.
Such a good point. I think we can never stop working. We'll always keep trying to overcome what feels, to your point, like this incredible challenge. But with the warming center, we were able to make sure 40 people had a safe, warm place to come inside over winter, have some food, make some connections, build some trust. And it was a phenomenal program. We built such great relationships, and we saw people come in and really take away a sense of safety and happiness in their lives. That was amazing. And even though sometimes you can look at the sector, to your point, and feel like, how can we make a difference? How can we figure this out? I really think we need to stay focused on those wins and those relationships. And if we keep working one step at a time, we will get there. We will fix this problem.
Why is reconciliation such an important part of the work that you do?
Well, there's a history, as you know, and in a way, all of the things that Threshold has, all of our land, all of our properties, all of our relationships are built upon, a very contentious and horrific history with Indigenous peoples. And I think we need to recognize that, and we need to be aware of how we have benefited in terms of where we are today based on that history. And so, if we're looking at the cultural genocide of Indigenous people, the best thing we can do is just try to work to empower those Indigenous voices and give them autonomy to practice their culture and preserve, their ability to pass on those stories. And so, at the same time as we recognize the history, we look to find ways to build allyship, and repair as much as we possibly can.
Eric, really appreciate the work that you do and the time you've given us on the show this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Eric Phillip is the CEO at Thresholds Homes and Supports, and this kind of puts a bow on a story that we talked about some time ago, at one point last year. I should have looked up the date for you, and I'm sorry, but we talked about it when the opposition was being vocalized in the neighborhood in Guelph where this land transfer was in progress, let's say, because it took a lot, right? This was land that had been owned by Thresholds Homes and Supports, and they approached the city of Guelph and said, hey, let's sever this forested part. It can't be developed anyway. And this surplus green space, we want to transfer to Crow Shield Lodge so that they can use that land, which in Eric's words was Indigenous land to begin with, and further their Indigenous teachings, remind folks of the history, allow those teachings to continue. And according to Crow Shield Lodge, there is a need to preserve as much land as possible for the generations who are not yet here, so that when they do arrive, there's a place for them to be, to connect, and they can be reminded of and learn those same teachings, to have a sense of belonging on this land instead of getting pushed off that land or being challenged over that land. There was a good deal of concern in the neighborhood initially as this work was getting underway to transfer this land. But I like what Eric said, and it reminded me of something I read in one of my newspapers this weekend. But when he talked about not trying to silence critics, to listen to their concerns, to hear their opinions, and then share with them, okay, here is what is happening, though. So this is perhaps what you think is happening. Here is what is actually happening. And then the entire neighborhood can come together and understand the benefits that are being derived from this transfer. One of the things that I read over the weekend, and I was quite pleased to read, quite frankly, because we talk a fair bit about the post-secondary sector. Mostly of late, those conversations are around funding for the post-secondary sector, but we've also expressed concern and or criticism of the sector for leaning too far in one direction politically, et cetera, not really being a space for the exchange of free ideas anymore. But there's some work being done in that regard at the University of Toronto right now, where a course has been designed specifically to allow for that very thing, a free exchange of ideas where your opinion or your point of view on an issue may be diametrically opposed to someone else's, but you can come into this space and freely share that point of view. What, of course, they avoid or work to avoid in those conversations and those that sharing of ideas is any ad hominem attacks, which, you're stupid, that's a dumb idea, things like that. No, what it trains us to do is actively listen and try to understand the perspective of that other person. I think it's terrific that something like that is happening in our post-secondary system. I hope it gains traction and becomes more widespread, because I can tell you, when I attended a long, long time ago, it felt that way to me. It felt like the kind of space where ideas could be shared freely and we would exchange them back and forth willingly. I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time on campus, in fairness. So I'm hoping that the fact that I think that the fact that this course exists, where students are encouraged to exchange ideas and hear others' perspectives, that suggests to me that we do need to maybe swing that pendulum back a little bit. And I would hope that we continue to swing it. And this picks up in other or on other campuses as well. I think it's really important. And that alludes directly to what Eric Phillip, the CEO of Thresholds Homes and Supports, was talking about, right? I'm not going to silence your voice just because it's critical of what I'm doing. I'm going to listen to you and then explain, well, here's why we're doing what we're doing. And you might have this little detail wrong that's forming your perspective. And what we end up with is a partnership like this that turns out to be a win-win. And this Indigenous Land Trust has acquired its first property in the city of Guelph. All right, we're going to get you a quick break here. And when we come back, it is that time of the show where we remind you, despite perhaps contrary experiences already on this Monday morning, but not everybody is a jackwagon. We'll tell you how and why coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Thank you very much to Sean for the email to Mike at 570news.com. We were talking earlier in the show about some iconic parts of our streetscape over the years. Now that Spitfire plane has been removed from the roof of KW Surplus on Victoria Street in Kitchener, it's really just the end of one chapter, though. It's not like the plane is gone forever. The former owner has donated it, the replica, which is almost full scale, to the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. So the plane was carefully removed this morning for transport to the Tillsonburg Regional Airport, where it will become the centerpiece of a memorial garden there. That's pretty cool. And when we got talking about some of those other iconic parts of our streetscape, the old Challenger restaurant and pub in Breslau was brought up, originally, I guess, known as the Hawk's Nest, then became the Challenger, and it had a kind of a space shuttle on the roof of the building there. And I was trying to remember the place in Cambridge, hotel, motel that had a rocket ship in front. And Sean's email to Mike at 570news.com reminds me that it was outside the old Satellite Motel. And it now has been moved to a garage on Samuelson Street in Galt, not far from Beverly Street. I remember talking to the folks that kind of saved the rocket ship, if you will, because it was no longer going to stand at the Satellite Motel. So they thought, well, this is too iconic a model to be just dismantled and discarded. Let's move it over to the garage on Samuelson Street. So, Sean, thank you for reminding me of that. This is, speaking of reminders, the time of the day on the show in and around 10:20 every day. We pause for a moment to share with you one of those stories that just reminds you that not everybody is a jackwagon. We encounter some behavior every day, I know, and it makes us feel like we're surrounded, utterly surrounded by jackwagons. But it's not the case. And I know it's easier to dwell on those things. This person did this person did that. It frustrated me. I might have blared my horn or even, I don't know, offered the one-finger salute, whatever it may. I might have cursed them under my breath. But really, there's way more good out there than bad. It's the 80-20 rule for sure. I often think it might be more like 85-15. 85% of people, very good people. You might catch them in a bad moment. That's fair. But most of us, we're doing pretty well out there. And so I share with you this morning out of Missouri about a group of strangers that came to the aid of a homeless man who had been living under an overpass for the better part of a year. And these 5 women who typically took walks in the area and saw this man day after day for such a long time decided, you know what? We've got to do something to help this guy out. So they started out with a fundraiser that would give this gentleman a temporary place to live. And after a little while, they were able to get him into a hotel room. But as they got to know this guy better, they realized that, he needs just a little bit more than just the hotel room. He needs to get back on his feet. He needs some support in doing that. So they continued their fundraising efforts until they could buy an RV that they could gift this man and his dog as a permanent place to live instead of the temporary nature of that motel room. And then because he was such a lover of his pet and dogs in particular, they helped hook him up with a job at a doggy daycare. So this fella now has a permanent place of his own in that RV to live. He's got a job at a doggy daycare that excites him. So he's got the roof over his head. He's got the meaningful work. And he says that these women who helped him out are more than just kind strangers who took some pity on his situation. They are now family to him. And he is back on his feet and working towards a much more stable future. Just because 5 strangers, women who walked, decided, you know what, there's a story behind this human being that has been living under this bridge all this time. We're going to do our best to help out. And it just goes to show you what 5 determined people can do to support somebody else who's a little bit down on their luck. The RV to call his own and the job to help support him and his dog Bentley moving forward. We are going to move forward to an update from the 570 News Center. Before 11, we are going to introduce you to Team Addy. You may already know about this team and the incredible work they've been doing in Guelph for the last many years. We'll give you an update on their progress before 11. And right after this update from the 570 News Center, it is an annual fundraiser about as unique as they come. We're dropping things out of helicopters, but they're not turkeys. We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. I was at a Kitchener Rangers game a couple of weeks ago, and there in the community corner at the Kitchener Rangers game were my friends from KW Accessibility, and they are already beginning work on their annual golf tournament. That comes up in June, but already for sale is the opportunity for you to get a ticket that could be worth $10,000 in prize money. It's one of the more unique fundraisers I have ever heard of, and they're going to tell us more about it this morning as they join the show. Edward Farwell is the executive director at KW Accessibility, one of the friends I saw at the game a couple of weeks ago. Good morning, Edward.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, my friend. How are you?
I'm always great when I'm chatting with you.
You're a good man. I appreciate the time. Brett Worley joins us as well. He's the chair of the Golf Tournament Organizing Committee. Brett, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about yourself?
Very good, very good.
Glad to hear that. Okay, Edward, if I could start with you before we get into the upcoming golf tournament and the fundraiser that's underway right now. Can you tell us a little more about the work that you do at KW Accessibility? What's the organization all about?
Sure. So KW Accessibility has been around for over 50 years, and we're a small grassroots agency that serves adults with physical disabilities. It doesn't matter what type of disability. Physical, some people use wheelchairs or walkers. Some people have visual issues. They might be totally blind or partially sighted. And we also can support people in the who are deaf or hard of hearing. We do a lot of different social, recreational, and health and wellness programs. It's actually quite a fun place to be. People come here and they make friends. And, we just have a really good time. And it helps people with their social isolation and just feel good about themselves.
You know, I can tell that it is a fun place to be and that socialization is possible, because when I was on your website earlier today and I saw the calendar of events, you know, even for the rest of this month and moving forward, I mean, there's so much that's being offered through KW Accessibility. And I know that fundraising is a critical component of keeping these programs operating, Edward, which is why, of course, the annual golf tournament and more. But how do you get funding?
So we have basically 2 or 3 funding streams. We do get a little bit of funding from the provincial government, from the Ontario government for our computer department. And then we also rely on agencies like United Way and the Waterloo Regional Community Foundation for some grants that way. But a large majority of our fundraising and our funds come from events like our golf tournament. It's definitely our biggest fundraiser of the year.
And that, of course, is coming up in June, once again at the Galt Country Club on Coronation Boulevard. Brett, I'll swing it over to you here as the chair of that golf tournament organizing committee. The golf tournament's one thing, but what you've attached to it for these last few years, I think is just fantastic. The helicopter golf ball drop. First of all, Brett, where did the idea come from?
Yeah, I've told this story a couple of times on your program, and I tell it to lots of people whenever they ask. But it was as simple as seeing something on YouTube from a golf tournament down in North Carolina, and they had a great YouTube video of it, and it looked really cool. Little did we know that when you start jumping into it, the logistics are not quite as simple to step through. But I guess 3.5 years ago now, we started our process of trying to figure out whether we could do it. And, you know, in partnership with Edward and his great team of trying to figure out how to get a lottery license to deal with that side of it, working with Great Lakes Helicopter Tours and Bailey to figure out if we could actually get a helicopter to slide by Galt Country Club, working with Galt Country Club to see if they would even allow it. And then there's the whole thing about Flight Path. But once you step through all that process and you get to the end of it, you realize it's a great opportunity to provide something interesting and cool to the event that we've been doing now for 10 years, and also a fun way to raise some money. And we've raised some good money in the first 2 years, and we're hoping for just as much or more in year 3.
Yeah, I think it's really great that you see something, and then, sure, there are some steps to take, some hoops to jump through, so to speak, but you persevere, you make it happen. And it really is quite the spectacle, having been there at Galt Country Club when this helicopter hovers over the green and the balls are dropped. And I guess, so how does it work from there, Brett? If I purchase a ticket, or essentially purchase a golf ball, what am I doing here? What are my chances?
Yeah, so we've averaged the last couple of years about between 16 and 1,800 golf balls. We're hoping, obviously, to get that number up a little bit higher. But let's assume you bought one golf ball, and your one golf ball, you'll receive a proper ticket that shows the golf ball number that you've purchased. And there will be a golf ball in amongst the 1,600 odd that has that number on it. And when we see that helicopter hovering over the 18th green and dropping 1,700 balls, if your golf ball with your number on it is the closest one to the flag that we've got sitting there, then you win $10,000. And you consider the odds of winning, even 1 in 1,600 is a pretty solid odd compared to, most 50-50s or lotteries. So it's a pretty solid opportunity.
I have this vision, Brett, of you in the days leading up to the annual golf tournament, sitting there with a Sharpie, marking 1, 2, 3. You don't do it that way, right? I'm hoping.
Well, you know what? As it turns out, Mike, it's not me personally, but it's an army of people at KW Accessibility that have literally Sharpied more than 1,600 golf balls, because we're prepared to sell more than the 1,600. But we have about 2,000 golf balls that are individually Sharpie numbered. And the reason, it goes back to the logistics conversation. When we started to look at, okay, so we've got all this stuff. Now we've got to make sure that these golf balls are ready to go. What's the most straightforward way to do it? And we talked to some vendors about, could we get them laser printed that way? And that became a bit of a cost challenge and a logistical challenge relative to printing. So we decided that the best way to do it was literally to Sharpie every single golf ball. So
I love it.
The golf ball that wins, yeah.
I thought there must have been a laser printing option. That's fantastic. I like that. Listen, the less you spend on preparing all of this, the more money that goes to the charity, which is what it's all about here.
Yeah, and that's always the most important factor in every conversation that we have with Edward is, how can we reduce costs and increase the amount of money that goes to the people who need it, which are the people that he talks about every day.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, Edward, how do we get our hands on one, or may I suggest more? Because I know you can get one for $20 or 3 for $50. So I'm recommending the 3 for $50 option, but how do we get ourselves a golf ball and a chance to win $10,000, Edward?
Well, probably the easiest for your listeners is to come to our website. All the information is on there, but they can call our office at 519-885-6640, and we can take their information and orders that way. It's really easy this year. We've got e-transfer available, cash or check. So we want to try and make it as easy as possible. And we actually even do debit and Visa if people want to come in with that or call us with their numbers. So, it's super easy. It's 3 for $50 is a great deal. I mean, where else can you get a chance at $10,000? And looking forward to hosting this event. I just got to say real quick, Mike. Brett mentioned, that we Sharpie everything. This is National Volunteer Week. Volunteer Appreciation Week. We've got some of the greatest volunteers out there to help us do these things. There's no way that Brett and the staff and I here could do that. We'd rely on them. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun, and we'll call the person the winner that day, Mike. and we'll present them the check. We'll invite them for dinner to the beautiful Gulf Country Club and present them with the check right that day, so you don't have to wait. It's awesome. It's a great deal.
I love it.
Lots.
I will repeat that phone number, 519-885-6640. But as Edward said, if you go to kwaccessibility.ca, you'll find right at the top of the website a link for the golf tournament, and all of the information is spelled out there. The phone number, the email address, the e-transfer address, all of it is really simple. So kwaccessibility.ca, click the golf tournament link. And on that note, Brett, how are we doing golf tournament-wise? Do we still have room for some groups to get involved in this for the June tourney?
Well, it's a bit of a good news, bad news story. We actually don't have any availability on the golf tournament side to play. We still have opportunities for whole sponsorship. We have one remaining larger sponsorship. So we do have some sponsorship opportunities, but from a golfer perspective, we're actually full again. And that just goes to sort of the history of the event, where this is our 10th year, so it's a big year for us. But we've got people, groups, and companies that have been participating and actively, bringing their money and their fun to that event from day one, it's actually more than 10 years ago now, because we missed a couple in COVID there. But we do not have golfer availability, but we've got sponsorship availability. And again, if somebody were interested in that, they could contact Edward directly. They could contact myself directly. They can call the number at the office again as well. So
I think it is a great news story, and we can still get in on the helicopter golf ball drop. 1 ball for $20, 3 balls for $50. Again, go to kwaccessibility.ca. All of the information is there. Edward, Brett, I look forward to seeing you at the golf tournament again in June, but keep up the great work, and thanks very much for joining the show this morning.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it. Edward Farwell is the executive director at KW Accessibility. Brett Worley is the chair of the golf tournament organizing committee. Just get in on this and help raise this money. A chance to win $10,000. It's pure chance if your ball lands closest to the pin. You can't go wrong with this, and you're helping out an organization that does so much in the community. Visit KW Access and then Ability with an A, kwaccessibility.ca. Find all the information right there. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. I will bet you have heard, at least in passing, about Team Addy. This is an incredible fundraiser that originates in Guelph, continues to spread. I had heard about it, and then I ran into some folks at a KW Titans game recently because they had a tent set up and were talking about their upcoming basketball tournament in support of Addison Hill, who tragically passed away due to cancer. Joining me in studio, Jessica Hill, Addie's mom, is here. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. The other part of the us is Andy Abra, who is Addie's basketball coach and continues to work in support of Team Addie. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Jessica, can we start with a little bit about Addison's story and how Team Addie got started?
Sure. She was having chemo March of 2022 and heard a kid ring the bell in the hall. It was COVID at that time, and they were obviously cancer-free, and she was like, Mom, we got to do more for the kids at Sick Kids. So at that point in time, of course, had no interest in fundraising. I just wanted to look after her, but she wanted to have like a basketball game and a lemonade stand and just something to just raise some funds for Sick Kids. So at that point, I contacted Andy and said, this is what she wants to do. And of course, Andy said, oh, we can do bigger than that. So, and here we are.
Here we are, coming up on year number 5 and $1 million later.
Yes, this year we'll hit $1 million for sure. It was a lot of hard work, but a lot of rewarding, meaningful work. 5th annual 3-on-3 basketball tournament in July. July signifies Addie's birthday month and also Sarcoma Awareness Month. So that's why we chose July.
Coach, how did we get here?
Well, like what Jessica said, she came with me about something Addie wanted to do. So I was her basketball coach. She played with me, my daughter, and the team. So then we just kind of came up with brainstorming some ideas. The original idea was like kind of a lemonade stand and a basketball party. I also run the basketball club that she's in. So I thought, well, let's invite the whole club and have a tournament. And then it just grew legs and got bigger and bigger. And then I invited some other local clubs like in Guelph and KW. And some other teams came out for that first year. And then it went from like the idea of a lemonade stand and a bit of a birthday party to the first year we had like 50 some teams, which was pretty good for the first year. And now last year we passed the biggest tournament in Canada. We had 191 teams last year.
Holy.
This year we're squeezing more in. Really the reason we had 191 teams last year is that's what the cap was, because that's how much space we had. So if we had more space, the tournament would just be bigger. So I think this year our goal is 225. And then last year as well, we added a tournament in Sarnia. That tournament had about 55 teams for its first year, and then we're going to add hopefully over 75 to 100 teams there as well. So it just keeps on growing and getting bigger.
That's incredible. It's an absolutely incredible story, and the growth is remarkable. Tournament comes up in July, but we were just chatting off the air, Andy, about like leading between now and then, including right away. I believe it's tonight. The All-Star Game's taking place.
Yeah. So with Team Addie, what we want to do is just make sure like she's not forgotten, right? So, and she loved the game, so we're growing the game kind of in her honor as well. The Guelph High School District, D10 it's called, they used to do All-Star Games a while ago. So we were just brainstorming ideas of what can we do to build the game of basketball in our area. So we decided to host the All-Star Game. So we did the girls All-Star Game in December. And tonight we have the boys All-Star Game tonight. So there's 22 kids that are going to be playing. So the top ball players in Guelph that are playing high school, they're all going to be competing tonight. We're raffling off tickets to play Raptors playoff game this next Thursday as part of the fundraising. It's going to be great.
Absolutely incredible. Jessica, how can we support all of this work that you're all doing with Team Addie?
Oh, gosh. Our website, teamaddie.ca. You can donate there. Check out all the events that we do. We do more than just basketball. There's a concert with Attitude we have in the fall. Lots of fun things that we're doing. And Instagram at teamaddie8.
Team Addie, just so you know, is ADDY. So teamaddie.ca, Instagram, Team Addie, ADDY, the number 8. As a mom, how do you do this?
Oh, well, I get asked that all the time. And to be truthfully honest, if you saw how Addie was at Sick Kids, how she took her cancer diagnosis with such grit and grace, she left me with the greatest gift, and that's strength, because I have no reason not to jump out of bed in the morning from how she was with her cancer diagnosis.
That's incredible stuff. And coming up on $1 million raised this year. You mentioned it before we came on the air, Jessica. For a young girl that thought that she'd be forgotten, this memory lives on forever. Yeah, and most recently she had her name unveiled at the nurses station on the 8th floor oncology floor at Sick Kids. Her name will be up there. So that's kind of a legacy left there too forever. Absolutely. Hell of a basketball player, hell of a kid, eh, Coach?
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. I love what you're doing, and any way and time we can spread the word, we want to be a part of this. So thank you. Teamaddie.ca. Please make sure you check out that website. Keep up the great work, and thanks for being here this morning. Thank you very much for having us. Coach Andy Abra in studio, Addie's basketball coach, and mom Jessica Hill, ADDY. That's Addie, teamaddie.ca. Check it out. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
How can I just let you walk away? Just let you leave without a trace. When I stand here taking every breath with you.
That is the parenthetical reference in the title of the song. Take a Look at Me Now. The name of the song, though, before you get to the parenthetical Take a Look at Me Now part, is also the name of the film for which it came from the soundtrack. Do you remember the name of that song? Do you remember the name of that movie? We're going to get to it on This Week in Music History with our good friend and musicologist Brian Allison. We do this every Monday morning at 11 a.m. And don't forget Brian's Facebook page of the same name. This Week in Music History, and you can get all of these tidbits we talk about and then some, because we all love these little trips down a musical memory lane with Brian. Good morning, my friend.
Hi, Mike.
I don't think it gets much better than this. First of all, I love the vintage 1971. I was 1 year after you, so 71's my favorite vintage, my friend. But albums don't get much bigger for a number of reasons than Sticky Fingers, which was released this week in 71.
Huge record for the Rolling Stones, and an album of many, many firsts that a lot of people might not be aware of. So yeah, it was April 23rd, 1971, Mike's birth year, that the Rolling Stones released Sticky Fingers. This was their ninth studio album that was released, and it marked a number of firsts, as I said. So it was the first the Stones recorded on their very own record label. They had decided that they were going to start their own label. It was called, fittingly enough, Rolling Stone Records, and they released Sticky Fingers as the first release on that album. Then you've got the album cover, which was, of course, a major, major groundbreaking back in the day. It had featured this provocative front cover that had a working zipper of a crotch on it. Andy Warhol had created that. He was paid $15,000 to design this functioning zipper at the front of this album. And even some of the early pressings had some underwear underneath. If you were bold enough to undo that slide, there was some underwear underneath. So this was kind of, cutting edge stuff. Initially, the zipper caused a lot of manufacturing headaches. It was damaging other records because it was metal rubbing against the covers. Back in those days, albums didn't have cellophane around them. They were just shipped the way they were, so it would damage a lot of records. So they fixed that up with some later releases. But it was a huge record for the Stones. It went to number one in both the U.S. and the U.K., top of the charts, had some great singles on it, and yeah, a major, major thing for the records. A couple of other firsts for that album, besides being the first album that was also recorded without founding member Brian Jones, who had passed away in 1969. It also featured the Rolling Stones' now famous lips and tongue logo, designed by John Pash, for the very first time. And that logo, of course, would become synonymous with the Rolling Stones over time.
It was a big decade, This Week in Music History, the 1970s, because I don't know, it gets much bigger than a potential reunion, or at least, an understanding between McCartney and Lennon this week in 1976.
I just love this story. And it's just one of those what ifs, right? Where you sit back and when you know about the story, you go, oh, imagine if this had actually happened, how huge that would have been. So it's April 24th, 1976. And Paul and John had been, there'd been quite a divide between them for a number of years. The Beatles did not end amicably. There was a lot of friction between them, tons and tons of lawsuits flying around for years. Paul and John trading barbs in their songs even. It was not nice. But in an effort to bury the hatchet, Paul and his wife Linda spent the evening of April 24th, 1976, with John at his New York City apartment, the Dakota. And it was, by all accounts, a very amicable evening with the two of them ended up watching Saturday Night Live on TV. Now, during the broadcast, producer of the show, Lorne Michaels, did a skit where he offered the Beatles money to turn up and play 3 songs live on Saturday Night Live. And the story is, and Linda McCartney actually backed this up, that John and Paul actually thought about taking a cab to the studio where SNL was being filmed live and were going to actually perform. But they decided they were too tired. It was too late in the evening. They better not do it because, it could just become too much of a big thing. But it was very interesting. I mean, Michaels comes on the show and he kind of did this tongue-in-cheek offer. he held up a check that was made payable to the Beatles for $3,000. And he said, you can divide it up any way you like. If you want to give Ringo less, that's up to you.
True Lorne Michaels fashion right there.
It was excellent. But when you think about what could have happened, what if they'd have got in that cab and gone down and appeared on Saturday Night Live, the two of them, and performed? How incredible would that have been?
No kidding. I told the story at the beginning of the show today, Brian, of a radio station I used to work at in music radio. And every year on this day, April the 20th, 420, we would deliberately schedule on our afternoon show Bob Marley's One Love, because, and we made sure it played at 4:20 in the afternoon, and we played dumb like it just happened to come up in the music rotation that day. But of course, the 420 years in our audience certainly loved the little nod to one of their favorite habits. And Bob Marley is making news this week in 1978.
Well, you knew I had to fit in some kind of a story that was fitting with 420, right? It was either a Bob Marley story or maybe a Grateful Dead story, but I elected for the Bob Marley one because I thought it was interesting. So April 22nd is significant, 1978, for Bob Marley because it represented his return to the stage for the first time after he had been wounded. He had been there had been a break-in at his house, and they had attempted to assassinate Bob Marley. He was shot in the chest and in the arm by 7 gunmen who broke into his house on September 3rd, 1976. So Bob had kind of been out of the spotlight for all of this time, recovering from his injuries. He was kind of keeping a low profile because, this was an assassination attempt. They tried to rub him out. But he came back to the stage April 22nd, 78, and it was held at Kingston's National Stadium, the One Love Peace Concert. And it was, an incredible event. People had dubbed it the Third World Woodstock. It was a reggae-themed show, of course, and aimed to unite the country being torn apart by all the political violence that was occurring at that time. And during his performance, he was performing his song Jammin'. He famously persuaded political rivals Michael Manley and Edward Sega to join him on stage and link hands. So he actually brought these two political rivals up on stage, had them join hands in a sign of peace to the world. So what an incredible gesture that was. And I think, Bob Marley probably doesn't get enough credit for being the ambassador for peace that he really was during his lifetime.
Where is he when we need him? Do you think he could get Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney to link hands on stage?
Oh, I'd like to think he could do it. I mean, Bob was just so straight down the middle. He was just all about love. Everybody needs to be together. Stop the fussing and the fighting. Let's just get along here. There was no sort of middle ground for him on, this person might be more right than the other person is. It was just about, no, let's just be peaceful. That's what we're meant to do.
Brian Allison joins us every Monday morning at this time for a look back at this week in music history. Don't forget Brian's Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History. You'll get these stories and so much more on that Facebook page, This Week in Music History. We'll jump out of the 70s into the 1980s, and a big change for a band that I know you still love today. In fact, you hear some of their music at the beginning of every Kitchener Rangers game. And have you figured out the non-parenthetical, it's not in brackets in the song title, Take a Look at Me Now? What movie did that come from, and why did we play it to start This Week in Music History today? You'll find out the answers to those questions and more coming up with Brian Allison on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio. Marino has sent an email to Mike at 570news.com. Knows the name of the song and the movie from which it originates, the Phil Collins tune. We'll get into more of that in just a moment. But we started This Week in Music History today with a Phil Collins song. Of course, there's always a reason that we do that. And I don't know why I can't get Brian back on my phone line here, Jen. Can you help me out here? Because I put him on hold, but hold seems to be different on this. You got him now? Thank you for that. Why can't I take him off hold on my side? Brian, I'm sorry about that, to leave you sitting there.
That's okay. I'm here.
I know. I'm glad you are. I could see you on my screen. Anyway, these are in studio problems, not your problems. We will get to the Phil Collins reason for playing the song in a moment, but let's begin right at the beginning of the 1980s as we continue looking back at this week in music history, and a different sound for AC/DC this week in music history.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, they kept true to their roots for sure. But of course, everybody knows that in 1980 they had lost their lead singer Bon Scott tragically, and they were looking to regroup. They were figuring out if this band was going to move forward. So it was April 19th, 1980, that they recruited singer Brian Johnson to replace their original frontman Bon Scott, who had passed away. And they did this with the blessing of the families, particularly Bon Scott's family. His parents were quite firm with the band members that they should continue the band, that Bon would have wanted it that way. So they decided to do that. Brian Johnson had cut his teeth with the British group Geordie, and he had successfully auditioned for AC/DC after Noddy Holder, who was the lead singer for Slade, actually declined their invitation to join AC/DC. So it might have been a very different band with Noddy Holder as lead singer for AC/DC, but it ended up as Brian Johnson. Some cool trivia about it. The late Bon Scott may have actually approved of Brian Johnson prior to Bon's untimely death and Brian taking his place in AC/DC. So Brian wrote his memoirs in 2020. Great read, by the way. Pick it up if you like. And he talks about how his band, Geordie, and AC/DC were traveling in some of the same club circles back in the 70s. And there's an off-repeat story that Bon had actually seen Brian perform with Geordie and had expressed being impressed with Brian's voice and his talent. So, unfortunately, nobody's ever been able to verify that. There was nobody there or who's come forward at this point who's actually said, okay, I was there when Bon said, yeah, this guy, Brian Johnson, he's great. What a great singer. But even if the story isn't verified, I think it's awfully nice to think that Bon would have approved of Brian as his eventual replacement in AC/DC. And Brian being, by all accounts, the great guy that he is.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And you're right, too. It's not like AC/DC deviated from the sound they had brought. There was just a different person singing the songs from that point forward.
I mean, you were never going to replace Bon Scott. I mean, that voice, to me, you see these polls all the time that come up, and they say, who has the most distinctive voice in rock and roll? I always say Bon Scott, because that voice, there's nobody like him. As soon as you hear him sing a note, you're like, that's Bon Scott. You know it's him right away.
Absolutely. Okay, we started the show this week in music history, Brian, with Against All Odds. In brackets, Take a Look at Me Now. Marino knew the name of the song and the movie that it comes from the soundtrack for. Why did we start the show this week with Phil Collins?
Well, because Phil's awesome and magic.
That too, yes.
Incredible. Yeah, April 21st, 1984, we go back to. So Phil had obviously left Genesis for the time being, at least, and he chalked up his first of 7 U.S. charts-topping singles with Against All Odds. Take a Look at Me Now, in brackets, taken from the soundtrack of the romantic thriller movie of the same name. And it stalled at number 2 in the UK. Phil would have to wait a few years to get his first number 1 as a true solo artist. So the following year, he did Easy Lover with Philip Bailey from Earth, Wind and Fire. But his first number 1 as a true solo artist, not a duet, wouldn't come till 88 when he did A Groovy Kind of Love. But yeah, it hit number 2 in the UK and became a big song. Full confession, I have never seen the movie Against All Odds. Is that wrong?
I don't think so. If it's wrong, then we're both... Well, 2 wrongs make a right, so then it's right, because I've also never seen it.
I know I've seen the previews. I've seen the video that contains a lot of bits from it, but yeah, I never actually saw the movie. So some cool other trivia. Phil Collins, I mean, what song do we remember Phil Collins best for? It's In the Air Tonight, right? Everybody would say that.
Yes.
It only reached number 2 in England. I always thought it was a number 1 hit, but it never got to number 1. It only got to number 2. It was kept out of the number 1 spot for a significant reason. Any idea what that might have been?
Oh, so you want me to think of a significant tune in the UK in 1981?
Early 81.
Hang on. Bonnie Tyler?
No.
No? Okay.
Good guess, though.
That's the best I could come up with. You got me stumped on this one, Brian.
Okay, I'll give you a hint, okay? What was a significant event in music that happened in late 1980?
Wasn't that Live Aid or one of the eight? No, what significant? 1980.
When I tell you, you're going to go, oh, of course. How could I have not got that? John Lennon was shot in December 1980.
Oh, yes, sure, of course.
So after Lennon's assassination, his music was making a huge resurgence all over the globe, really, but particularly in the UK, his home nation. And In the Air Tonight got to number 2, but didn't get to number 1 because John Lennon's song Woman from his 1980 album Double Fantasy, which was the first song that was issued after Lennon's death posthumously, held the number 1 spot, and Phil couldn't knock it off the number 1 spot. So John Lennon kept him out of the number 1 spot.
You even dropped an Easter egg in earlier when you were talking about McCartney and Lennon mending fences. The last time they saw one another, I should have put 2 and 2 together on that one.
That's okay. It's Monday morning, bud.
All right, let's look at this week in 19... Oh, first of all, sorry, Marino's email went on to say, when he guessed the correct title of the song, that it shouldn't have taken this long to get Phil Collins into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Shall we just...
Agreed.
Okay, yeah, right? There's not going to be an argument there.
100%. Phil should have been in years and years ago. I could name you 30 other artists and bands that should have been inducted long after Phil Collins. Come on.
Absolutely. Okay. This week in 1990, one of the best guitar players ever, Jimi Hendrix, is featured this week in music history.
He is, long after his passing. So April 25th, 1990, the famous white Stratocaster Jimi Hendrix played at Woodstock fetched a big chunk of money at auction when it was bought by an Italian TV host and music critic. So Jimmy had this Olympic white Fender Stratocaster, which he played at Woodstock. And it's the one that he actually used to play the Star-Spangled Banner at the end of Woodstock. He closed Woodstock with this guitar. It's a very significant piece. So in 1990, this guitar fetches $295,000 at auction. Not a bad amount for such an amazing piece of rock and roll history. And Hendrix had kept it after Woodstock, and then he gave it to his drummer, Mitch Mitchell, and Mitch held on to it for years, and he eventually sold it to an unknown buyer. Then, in 1993, the guitar was bought at auction by Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft and a huge Hendrix fan. Allen paid $2 million for it. And the guitar is now part of the collection of the Museum of Pop Culture, the MoPop, which is in Seattle, which is a museum that actually Paul Allen founded. And the guitar today is probably valued at about $20 million. So nice piece of rock and roll memorabilia there that passed hands a few times and is now worth probably, what a lot of countries spend on programs per year.
Exactly. You mentioned he uses it to play the Star-Spangled Banner. We had a kid, Braden de Belvalle, who played the national anthem before a Rangers game on electric guitar. He had done it the day before at the Galt Arena Gardens before a Cambridge Redhawks game, brought it to the Memorial Auditorium, but something went haywire in the system, and you could tell this kid could play, but the sound system kind of let him down. I hope he gets another chance to do this at a Kitchener Rangers game, because this kid could play that guitar, and it was so reminiscent of Hendrix and the Star-Spangled Banner.
That's incredible. And there's been lots of artists that have sort of redone that, Star-Spangled Banner on electric guitar, which at the time was sort of like, wow, nobody's ever played the Star-Spangled Banner on an electric guitar like that. And it was quite impressive. So, yeah, hopefully that kiddo will get another chance to come back to the Odd and impress the fans.
I hope so, too. Brian, you always impress me, especially when you stump me on trivia. This has been fun. Thanks, as always, for being here.
Always. And don't forget, I have cheat notes. So,
No,
it's not really a fair trivia challenge when I'm looking at notes and you're not.
I love it. And I should have, 1980. What else was bigger than, of course, the tragedy that was the assassination of John Lennon? Love it, Brian, every week. We'll talk to you again next Monday.
You bet, Mike. Have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Okay, bye.
Brian Allison is our good friend, musicologist, joins us every Monday morning at 11 for This Week in Music History. We couldn't even get to every story this week, so make sure you check out the Facebook page, This Week in Music History, on Facebook, and get so much more. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now, that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight, eyeball to bloodshot eyeball, like he'd never even had a secret.
That is our friend David Drew. It's not specifically about him when Scott Wicken performed that spoken word performance, but I mean, it's got to be close. He must have at least been invoking the spirit of David Drew. Was he not?
He didn't even know me at the time.
Really?
But karma.
Yeah, he got what he deserved, that Wiccan guy.
Oh, that's Karma's the dog in the song that sang Dylan better than Dylan could do.
That's right. Exactly. And David Drew, I mean, I guess we get what we deserve, too, because he's here every Monday morning, 11:30, to share his views.
What did your listeners do to deserve this?
I have no
Before we start,
yes,
I want to throw best wishes and great luck out to my sister-in-law, Carolee Peters-Wiersma, who is running in the Boston Marathon today.
Whoa.
Her second run.
Good for her. Her second only?
Her second run in this marathon.
She's done the Boston. This is the second time the Boston.
The thing about the Boston Marathon, it's not just really huge, but because it's huge, when you run it, if you have a decent time, all of a sudden these marathons from around the world just start randomly trying to get you to run in their races. So all these marathons you've never heard of. So it's like, I'd love to go to Cologne. There's a reason. I'm just going to go there and run 40 kilometers. Anyway.
I love it. Good for her. Best of luck indeed.
And back to the show.
Back to the show with David Drew, owner, negotiating change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies. And David, of course, is a former Conservative Party staffer with our federal Conservative Party. Let's talk about, we're going to move geographically across the country, as David pointed out, starting on the left coast with all those lefties in British Columbia. What's going on with property rights out there right now?
Well, they're definitely under question, their legitimacy. We have several. BC is the most over-treated province in the country. A lot of it is because so many of those treaties were newer. So the First Nations out there knew a little bit better of what to get into. So you actually have some legitimate treaties out there. The problem is they're overlapping with each other. Anyway. But we have this UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that says a pile of stuff. And the BC legislature passed a law honoring that declaration. And the legislature passed it unanimously. Like, let's not blame entirely the NDP for this. But the government did assure the entire legislature that this would have no legal effect on property rights. And then, well, the courts decided otherwise, and the law is the law. So commercial developments through certain sections of BC right now are basically being abandoned because nobody knows who holds title or is willing to put capital forward. You have property owners who aren't sure whether they're going to still own their homes in a few years as this settles out. And you have a premier who really, really believes in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, but also would like to see his party get reelected at some point. So yesterday, the story started breaking that the BC government was going to back down and amend this legislation. Now, to full update, this morning, there seems to be an amendment saying, no, they've changed their mind. But in both cases, the sources seem to be within BC First Nations. So as to how they had the inside track as to what the government was going to do and then changing its mind in 24 hours, I'm not sure. But boy, oh boy, if you are David Eby, you are going to lose your government over this one way or another. If you leave it alone, you're going to have people who want to stay reelected who are, you got to remember, the BC NDP is not the federal NDP. It's the left-wing party or the center-left versus the center-right in BC. It's not like... Anyway, so he's going to lose people on his right flank if he doesn't do something about this, but he's going to lose people on his left flank if he does, because he has at least 6 members, I believe it's 6, who actually have First Nation status in his caucus. And yeah, they're on a razor-thin minority. So he's in real trouble over this, and it was all supposed to be about as effective as the land acknowledgement you have in your doorway in the lobby that's been closed for 3 years.
The lobby's been closed for 3 years. The land acknowledgement
it's
remains
still up there if you squint through the windows, the tinted windows.
David Eby is a dead premier walking anyway, is he not?
He is, but would you like to be your legacy being Kim Campbell, or would you like your legacy to be... I'm trying to think. No, I'm trying to think of the last leader who left a party in really, really good shape. Because, Justin Trudeau didn't. Stephen Harper didn't. Stephen Harper kind of did. He's the closest we could get, I'd say. But, when you're leaving on a loss.
Kathleen Wynne did not. Dalton McGuinty did not.
Yeah, exactly. Mark Carney recovered despite Justin Trudeau. Kathleen Wynne recovered despite Dalton McGuinty. So I don't know. But he doesn't want to be that one who's a Kim Campbell.
All right.
He doesn't want to drive it into the ground. He's going to go. But, man, what's your legacy in 10 years? What are you going to be remembered for? The last last NDP premier of BC? The guy who suck and blew on Indigenous rights? The guy who had principles until they actually came to cost something? I don't know, but that's what's going through his head, too. It's like, not just this next week, but 20 years from now, what was it all for?
You could be the Bob Rae of British Columbia, the last NDP premier of Ontario, and likely the last ever.
Well, he was also the first, whereas David Eby has a proud legacy to stand on.
Good point. It was an NDP government when I was out there many a decade ago. All right, let's bring it east, and in fact, right here to the region of Waterloo. And Regional Councillor Joe Gowing wants us to have our own housing corporation.
So my recollection is that housing is not a responsibility of the regional government. It's something they've chosen to take on.
Well, I wouldn't say chosen.
Well, you could say it was dumped upon them.
Yes.
But you can't say that it's in their mandate.
Absolutely true.
And so what we're talking about here is pouring money in upfront that is going to come from something that is a legitimate mandate to set something up that is in the province's responsibility. But mainly it's just, these are the guys who can't get our water straight. And now we want to invest a whole pile of money into a housing corporation for them. What could possibly go wrong? I get the idea that you want to do something, but your job at this point is to say, hey, provincial government, do your job, not find creative ways to spend money you don't have.
I think, though, and full disclosure, we're having Joe on the show tomorrow to talk about this.
Tell him I said hi.
I will. I was curious about this when I read about it, because the one part of it that I actually like is that his theory, at least, is that it will cost us less to do it this way than we are already spending anyway.
In the long term.
Sure.
Yeah.
But your point about the water file being the disaster that it is, why should we trust this particular group with any large file? Absolutely.
No, but also it's like we have things that we have to pay for.
But we're paying for the housing anyway because it was dumped on us.
Well, it wasn't dumped on us, though.
It was, though.
It just wasn't getting done anywhere else. It wasn't like the province said, here, guys, you do it. Did they? Did I miss that part?
Wow. So we should just not do anything.
Well, we should get the people whose job it is to do their job.
Yeah, that's fair. Stay in your lane politics. I'm a big fan of it. And sometimes you got to get back in your lane, provincial government.
Bingo.
But anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And, but this is a beer, I don't know how much time we have, but this is a bugbear of mine because it's like, why am I most frustrated with voting? It has nothing to do with first past the post. It's about who do I blame for the state of our healthcare system? Now I get the city involved because, they're involved, the university land and, sourcing the land and all of this stuff. Is it maybe it's just our city isn't putting enough into it? Or is it that the federal government is giving enough to the provinces to fund healthcare? I want to know who to point the finger at.
David, we're too busy. We're too busy just trying to put some roast beef and mashed potatoes on the table.
But that's just it. I want to know who to point the finger at. And they set up this crazy shell game. So I'm too busy with my roast beef and potatoes to know who to point the finger at. And I, as a citizen, can't figure out because there's so many fingers in the pot.
That's why you and I are here, to point the finger in the right direction.
Yeah, so we don't need another housing corporation.
Okay. Fair point. Joe Gowing on the show tomorrow morning, 9:30.
Dave Drew says hi.
I'll say hi for you. The plane. Oh, my gosh. Let's talk about the plane. Let's talk about the own goal that is the plane from the Every Person's Premier, shall we?
And people are going to disagree on this, but Doug Ford loses either way. You're thinking the own goal was buying the plane. I'm thinking the own goal was getting rid of it. People are like, Trump always chickens out. Ford always flip-flops. And this is just it. Like, okay, I can see the need for a plane for our premier to move through this country, through the eastern seaboard, and even just to Timmins or to Kenora.
He can fly economy like the rest of us.
Well, if we want him to spend his time rerouting through Sudbury, through Timmins to get to a place where that's just it. A lot of the places, like, how much time do you want him to spend in his car?
As much time as it takes. He should experience this province like the rest of us experience this province. He should.
I think our politicians are underpaid enough. I don't want them to be spending their time looking at the province through tinted windows. I'd rather they get where they're going, do their work, and get home. And in a lot of the cases, they're going to be having to book private jets anyway because there's no commercial flight to Gore Bay.
Maybe they need to work on that then. Maybe the fine folks of Gore Bay or the would-be tourists need to have a direct flight.
Yes. Let's just create demand for flights in the middle of nowhere. If it was that easy, Chris Wood at our airport, he would have had us like triplet size.
That's a good point.
You can't create market demand with the Strait of Hormuz closed.
The $29 million expense was just own it, is what you're saying.
Yeah. But my gosh, 1 week, not even? And they're selling it as quickly as possible? Not even, we're going to sell it to get our money back? That might involve us sitting on this for a week or two? They're going to get rid of it as quickly as possible. How much of a haircut are we going to take on that?
I want to know.
And most importantly, though, why flip-flop on this so fast, but you're still standing behind a bloody tunnel under the 401? The idea of expanding Toronto Island Airport so it can take bigger jets? All these cockamamie ideas are out there, and he's burning credibility on those. But the idea of this being an effective use of time management and wise use of taxpayer dollars, he wasn't willing to put his credibility on that. Like, that's where I'm at, Why are you fighting over these stupid, huge things and just capitulating totally on this small thing that is actually quite defensible? Like I say, you can disagree with me on it. But now he's lost both of us. He wanted that plane and he felt the need for it, so he lost you. And now he got rid of it without even spineless worm. Bloated jellyfish.
Do you want me to say hi to Doug Ford next time he's on the show for you?
Yes.
Okay, I will do that. David Drew joins us Monday mornings at 11:30 to share his views on Drew's Views. We've got some forward guidance from Prime Minister Carney coming up. And you will not believe, because I did not believe what the RCMP went and done, but they done it. And we'll talk about it as we continue Drew's Views this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Monday mornings, 11:30 is time for us to hear Drew's Views. David Drew, former Conservative Party staffer, now the owner-operator at Negotiating Change, Government Relations and Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. It's a just under 10-minute video posted online by the Prime Minister himself. I devoured it earlier this morning, David. I pulled some clips I have not yet shared on the show, but we can share our thoughts on the forward guidance offered by Prime Minister Carney.
I love the premise. I love most that he says he's going to be doing this regularly, because I think that would be handy. We talked about it before we started the segment, and I really liked the beginning, and I thought it ended powerfully, but I thought it was about 4 or 5 minutes too long. I thought the history lesson, I didn't really need to know that much about the death of Isaac Brock. There was a whole pile of extraneous stuff in there. And again, it was leaning very hard on some vague things, and there was very little. All the potatoes were mashed, and there was no meat, to throw it back to our last segment's references. So I loved it as the opportunity, and the worst parts about it, in my mind, were, number one, he set it off as an accountability and transparency exercise, but he chose to do it in a forum where there will be no questions from either pesky opposition people or reporters. So as far as transparency goes, I'm not really sure. He has the worst attendance record for question period of any prime minister in history. And when you think about who his predecessor was, that goes a long way. So he could be doing a whole lot of other things. So anyway, I encourage people to try and watch it and judge it on its own merits, because there was good in there was bad in there. And at the very least, you know, it's a good entry into figuring out what he's trying to do. So as voters, it's pretty cool that he did this, and we should look at it and judge it skeptically or positively or whatever, but we should watch it. So that's my message, is watch it yourselves.
I pulled 3 clips from it, roughly 3 minutes total out of the almost 10. So about 30% of it that I thought were highlights. I'll share them in the next hour when we get into rant or rave. But I agree. I liked that he was doing it. He even used the word promise, which always strikes me. It always resonates with me when a politician uses the word promise, but promise to continue updating us in this manner. But what doesn't sit well with me is what you pointed out when it comes to the transparency aspect of this. You're posting this online on your official YouTube channel. Interestingly, you're not getting broadcast coverage of it, so me and the mainstream media wonders. But further to the point, no questions from pesky reporters and or opposition. So it's your platform only. Mm-hmm. Interesting delivery mechanism.
And again, I don't hate the player, hate the game.
Sure.
If I was him, I'd take advantage of this too. I think I would have had a little bit more chunky content and a little bit less vacuous graphics about the 1800s.
Fair enough. Okay. And again, some clips coming up after the noon news. Let's keep moving further east. We went from Waterloo Region to the province of Queen's Park, now to Ottawa. Let's get out into Nova Scotia. And I cannot believe what the RCMP is doing.
Well, they are apologizing. Because
as they should.
As they should. They were apologizing for scheduling a live action exercise in the area of Portapique on the anniversary of the death, the mass shooting there that was, 4 years ago? 3?
I think it's 4 now.
And that entire episode, for listeners who might not remember the details, was an entire exercise in RCMP incompetence. The left hand did not know what the right hand was doing. The RCMP officer who was fatally shot was unprepared for the danger that she was actually in. There was just so much horror going on. A lot of people died unnecessarily. And on the anniversary of the occasion, the RCMP was just planning to have ammunition and guns going off in the area, to have a training exercise. So it got kiboshed, but you got to wonder, how? And it's one of those questions that we're never going to know the answer to, but you got to wonder, okay, so whoever did sign off on this, what's their next role going to be? Something tells me it's still going to be a promotion, because that's how these things happen.
It's mind-numbing to me, and does nothing for my
confidence
generally of late. It seems to me, David, that inmates are running asylums all over the ding-dang place. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, the bigger the institution, the bigger the problems.
Incredible.
Like, you know what I mean? Waterloo Regional Police, I think, are doing a pretty darn good job, to be fair. I get to Toronto, and I'm a little bit less clear. We get to the RCMP, and I'm not sure about anything. So,
all right, 60 seconds is what we've got left. But the former premier of Newfoundland is doing what with his donations?
So he donated over $46,000 to the election campaign of the current premier of Newfoundland, whose name eludes me. But it's making headlines now because, well, apparently there's unlimited donations in Newfoundland, so even a $46,000+ donation didn't make headlines at the time. But he's saying that in exchange for this donation, he got the current premier to put the kibosh on an MOU with Quebec on hydro. And the current premier...
I thought they already had that.
Well, they're always renegotiating and updating, et cetera. And the current premier is saying, well, actually, I've set up a task force on it. And yeah, we are revisiting it, but they're going to report back. Nothing's dead yet. And if you remember Danny Williams from your history books, he's a little bit of a fiery guy. So he's out raising a bit of rage. And yeah, $46,000 donation. And the only reason it's making headlines is because of this disagreement that there might have been something at play over $46,000 donation. And by the way, unions and businesses can also donate unlimited in Newfoundland. If you're crooked, that's the place to be.
Tony Wakeham is the current premier. He just elected in October of 2025. So because that's not the name that was coming to my mind. So now we know.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're crooked, unlimited donations from practically anybody. Maybe it's like Alberta used to be, where you didn't even have to be a citizen. In Alberta, you used to be the premier. You'd go down to California. You'd have these fundraisers. And nobody knew who was in attendance or how much was raised, but you come home with like $1.5 million in your bank account. And there was no disclosure on any of it.
All right, we got to go. Forward guidance, clips, and rant or rave coming up. Thank you, David.
Thank you, sir.
David Drew with Drew's Views, Monday mornings, 11:30 here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Every day from noon until 1, we open the phone lines and give you the chance to talk back. It is the Talk Back Hour. And here on this radio station, it's something of a tradition to use our Monday Talkback Hour as something we call rant or rave. So you rant about something because you're very upset about it. You rave because you're the opposite of upset. You might even be happy. I don't know why you'd be happy with anything that's falling from the sky lately, but heck, that's totally up to you. Maybe you like winter into late April. I don't know. But you are more than welcome to share your positive thoughts. Maybe we could reserve those for our Kitchener Rangers right now. What a playoff run they're having. But nonetheless, rant or rave, get it off your chest and onto the air at 519-570-2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. Remember, if you can't get through on one of the lines, a little insider information for you, try one of the other numbers. They'll all ring through as we get busy. So I'll go through as many calls as I can. And we're going to start with Kyle, who's got a rant or rave to start us off this Monday afternoon. Hello, Kyle.
Oh, I can't nothing but rave. First of all, it was a great weekend. Spent it at Niagara Falls. Didn't win any money at the casino, but still had a fantastic time, watching some of the baseball and the hockey and all that stuff. And I got another rave, is the fact that I picked up my Kitchener Rangers tickets today for Friday and Sunday. So I'm ready, buddy. I am ready to go already. So it was pretty easy. Waited right when the timer dropped, and we were the first ones, or one of the first ones, I guess, to get our tickets. So we're all ready to go, and can't wait to watch the Kitchener Rangers play. Let's go, buddy. Go Rangers, go. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thanks, Kyle. I love it. I mean, the crowds at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium have been fantastic in these playoffs so far. We've had 5 home games, and the last one, last Friday, the clinching game against Sault Ste. Marie. We were in Sault Ste. Marie last Thursday. Rangers lose. They had the lead going into the third period, end up losing the game. So it was only after the game last Thursday that tickets for Friday could go on sale. So late Thursday night, tickets are on sale. And when that puck dropped on Friday at the Memorial Auditorium, we had more than 6,900 fans in there. Oh, way to go. So yes, tickets for games 1 and 2 versus Windsor, the Western Conference Final, went on sale this morning. Friday night's game, 7 o'clock. Note the start time on Sunday of 6 o'clock, but both games right here in Kitchener. Tony is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How about yourself?
Oh, can't complain. I'm actually going to start off with the rave. I got free tickets to Sunday night's game, so I'm looking forward to that.
Sweet.
Go Rangers, go.
Love it, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Free, it's for me.
My favorite four-letter word, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And one little rant, if you could, Mike. I know the people that are in power listen. If we could, I know the roads are in bad shape, but if we could also just not just the potholes, but could we get someone out there to start painting the lines on the road again? I mean, some of these roads, you don't know what lane you're driving in anymore. So, if you have any influence, Mike, let the people know to start painting some lanes as well. Or lines, sorry.
You got it, Tony. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, brother.
Great to hear from you. Listen, this is not unique to Waterloo Region. I'm sure you know that. Having been traveling a lot lately, especially this past week up in Sault Ste. Marie, you want to talk potholed roads. Oh, my goodness gracious. But along with the potholes and the necessary repairs that are happening there, lots of patching going on all over the region right now. Tony says we need to get those lines painted again, too, so we can see the lane markings properly. Are you listening out there? Powers that be. Good stuff. Let's get her done. Andre, you are on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. I got rants and raves. I have to say for our young Kitchener Rangers that to the Sault Ste. Marie, I was very happy for them to come here as a fan and to hear you announcing the game on Friday, but definitely not easy to go there, take the bus. Like you said, it's, you're an older man, but just imagine our players, the coach staff, prepare mentally, come back here for the big fans that are so hyper. And it doesn't matter. It's not easy mentally, physically, and they did it. They pulled it off. So congratulations, and that's my big rave. The rent also for the Titans. Congratulations to them, our KW Titans. And my rant, Mike, and I don't understand. I've been wanting to say this is how come you were talking about the potholes. How come the potholes are not getting covered? Like, I live on a crescent, and we never had this problem now for probably since last year. And how come they're not getting on it? I would like to know, where's the money going, Mike?
Well, it's a good question, Andre. But listen, if you're living on a crescent, I can only imagine how little traffic you see there. The high traffic areas are going to get first dibs on pothole repairs. And on the KW Titans note, in case you missed it, they won Game 2 of their Basketball Super League Championship Final versus Sudbury yesterday at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. So Game 3 in that series is tomorrow night up in Sudbury. The Titans have a 2-0 series lead. You win Game 3, you win the championship. So the Titans 1 win away. They might get it tomorrow night on the road in Sudbury. Dave from Cambridge, Farwell's Force member number 47, is with us on Rant or Rave. Hello, Dave.
Good afternoon, Mike. Rant and Rave. The rant is on the Canadian or Ontario media. And sorry, Mike, it is the Ontario media, which you're a part of. They grabbed the low-hanging fruit and I don't know if it's to embellish their ratings system or what, but they don't offer a balanced point of view on the, quote, Premier's plane, unquote, which is now no longer in existence for the province of Ontario.
What was unbalanced about the coverage, Dave?
Well, I would have liked to see a more balanced view, like example, for the square mileage of this huge province compared to all the premiers across Canada and what they have access to travel and how much square miles they have to cover and all the rest of it. That would be a little balance, but that's my just quick shot across the bow about it. But I want to give a big rave, as usual, with everybody else on the Kitchener Hockey Club. And have a great afternoon, Mike, and go Rangers to go on the next round against Windsor.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, the Kitchener Rangers are that Kitchener Hockey Club. What I will say about the plane and my frustration with the $29 million expense that now we're going to eat some of because we're going to sell it immediately. You're going to lose money on that sale. You can plan. You have a staff full, you can fly different ways. You can take different modes of transportation, lots of different times for $30 million. There's no need for a premier to have access to a private plane, in my opinion. I struggle enough with the Prime Minister, but we know that the Prime Minister travels much further afield than just the province of Ontario. But anyway, I could go on and on. I think if we are being sincere about our efforts to cut costs, run efficiently, then we will fly. Sure, of course you're going to fly first class because you're the premier, right? But you can fly and you can drive and you can do all these different things. And you can do it many, 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 many times for the price that you spent on the plane. To not even get into the operating costs, the ongoing operating costs of that plane. Come on with your coming on. Mike, Farwell's Force, member number 37. Good afternoon from Point Clark.
Good afternoon from sunny, snowy Point Clark. We have a few flurries in the air.
We had them down here too.
Yeah, well. Winter is
never ending.
Hanging on a little bit. So I have a little bit of a rant about the plane thing here. I used to be a pilot, right? That thing that they bought requires a runway of 5,900 feet in length. There are very few runways in Ontario, other than Thunder Bay, maybe London, Ottawa, Toronto, and a couple others up north that can accommodate that plane. If you were really serious about this, you'd probably get a short takeoff and landing plane like a Dash 8 because they can go into shorter fields across Ontario. Now, the optics of this, given our current restraints, current economy, is very, very bad, and the timing, right, Mike? But I don't believe I cannot believe the tone deafness here, right? I also did a check on using AI. Only Quebec has a fleet of planes available to their premier. The rest are like general aviation fleets for the other premiers, and most of them travel commercial. Now, my rave is to you, Mike. You're an older guy, a little bit younger than me, but you survived that trip all the way up to the Sioux with the bus and everything else. It must have been tiring doing both the morning show and the call at night and everything else. And I think you need a rave for doing all that great work last week. And that's my thoughts, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate your kind words. Listen, I don't get up every morning and have to dig a ditch. I don't get up every morning and have to perform brain surgery. It does get a little tiring, and it gets more tiring the older I get, but it's not the heaviest lifting. And I enjoy these conversations with you, so I'm glad we could still have them even while I was on the road. Rant or Rave continues. Phone lines are open to you on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Ontario Premier Doug Ford speaking right now in Ottawa at a Canadian Chamber of Commerce event. What I wouldn't give for the ability to read lips. I think what he's saying is mea culpa, mea culpa, mea matzi, mea culpa. Something like through my most grievous fault. I learned that somewhere along the lines, I think in church. Anyway, the Premier is talking, and I'm sure he is groveling to the people of Ontario. I'm so sorry. I didn't really mean to buy that $30 million jet. I'm going to sell it back now at a loss, but don't worry. We have lots of money to do all kinds of things that I want to do, but none of the things that you want me to do, or something like that. I'm kind of fired up about this whole private jet thing. It was never a good idea. Like, rules for thee and not for me, that sort of thing. I really wish that those who we elect to power would live a little bit more like those of us who elected them live. Because when we have to get places, we don't get there on private jets. And I know with certain jobs come certain perks, but I think you should experience this province the way Ontarians experience this province. And that means being in traffic sometimes, too. You might think about, I don't know, some improved rail service between Waterloo Region and Toronto. You might think about that if you were stuck on that ding-dang 401 more often. But I digress. It's your hour for rants and or raves here on the show. Back to the phones for Walter. Good afternoon, Walter.
Good afternoon. Number 34 here, Mike.
Farwell's Force member number. Good day.
Okay. Mike, now, last week, when you guys went up to the Sioux there, how long of a bus trip was that? And, like, what day did you guys go up there? I'm just trying to recall.
We went up last Monday, and we played on Tuesday and Thursday, and then came back home by plane to play again on Friday.
So how did the bus get home then? Like, it came home empty?
The bus yes, we have a trailer and or a bus that carries the equipment. So it comes home with just the equipment, and the players and some of the lucky broadcasters travel by plane.
Okay, so you got a plane ride home there on Thursday night then?
I did. It's less than an hour to fly. It's an 8-hour haul on the road. It's less than 1 hour in the air.
Isn't that crazy?
It's wild. Yeah.
So, like, is it a prop plane, or is it a jet plane, or what is it, Mike?
You're asking the wrong guy, Walter. First of all, it was dark. Second of all, I know next to nothing about planes.
Okay.
So, yeah, I couldn't really tell you what kind of plane it was. All I know is I got onto it. I kept my head down and my nose into a crossword puzzle until the plane landed and I got off again.
I see. So, like, was it a charter, or was that on, like...
It was a charter, yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then you were home early on Friday then?
Very. I was in my bed a little after 2 a.m. Friday.
Oh, my God. What a difference, eh?
Well, it beats 7 a.m.
Got home. Yeah, like you wouldn't have got home until, like the roosters would have been crowing when you got home.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to clarify that, because I wasn't sure how that bus, or like if it left like on the Thursday after, like right after the game. I'm assuming it did, but I'm not sure. But like with all the equipment and like so on. But Mike, did you happen to see that Tampa Bay game last night?
I don't want to talk about it, Walter.
Oh. Geez, that's pretty presumptuous of you.
Is it? Why? Why would it be? I just don't want to talk about it. I'm just telling you. So you can honor that wish, or I can hang up the phone on you. Which is it going to be?
Oh, yeah. You love having that dump button, don't you?
I do. See? I just used it. There you go. Yeah, I saw that game because my beloved is a fan of the team that Tampa was playing. So I know what happened. I know how it ended. And I do not like it, Sam. I do not like my green eggs and ham. That trip home from the Sioux, I've never had more questions about anything besides that. Honest to goodness, I guess there's great interest because Ontario Hockey League teams don't fly an awful lot. The Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds flew out too. We left from the same airport, the same airstrip. It was the same thing for both teams coming home Thursday. And I've done that before. We call it deadheading, leaving the game on a Sunday night and driving through the night, getting home about 6:30, 7 o'clock the next morning. And if you think, maybe it's just me, I don't sleep well aboard the bus, so you get home in really, really rough shape. Was certainly home in less rough shape this time because, getting in bed about 2:15 beats the heck out of getting off a bus at 7 a.m. after being on that bus all night. So that's the way it worked last week. The beauty of playing the Windsor Spitfires in the next round, which starts this Friday at home, is there will be no air travel necessary or long travel. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes down the 401. I'm good with that. Mark is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mike. Got a rave.
Can you stop the dinging in the background?
Pardon me?
Can you stop that sound in the background?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Hold on, Mike.
All right.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's fantastic. What was going on?
I had my door open in my car, and there was a beeping going on.
Okay, I got you. Okay, what do you want to say?
Okay, Rave.
Yeah,
I like that story about the Spitfire.
Pretty cool,
KW surplus.
Yeah,
it was very. I've been to that store many times, Mike.
Sure, we all have.
Didn't they have a big tank out front too?
There was a tank at one time, yes, sir.
Is that gone?
It's a good question. I'd have to pay more attention. I think it's gone.
Okay. But, very nice story. It's going to
What's the name of the place again, Mike?
Tillsonburg Regional Airport for the
Exactly,
Canadian Harvard.
Tillsonburg.
Yeah.
Beautiful story.
Good.
And one more thing, Mike.
Yes.
George threw out a teaser on Friday about Richards. I'm waiting to hear from him.
Oh, my gosh. I forgot all about that. That's right. He had a story about, was it Mike Richards or a relative of Mike Richards? I think it was a relative.
His brother-in-law or something like that, Mike.
All right. You call him out, Mark. Let's get George out of the woodwork to tell us that story.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, buddy. Good to hear from you today. The story we got to share at 9:30 this morning was about that Spitfire replica plane that was on top of the KW Surplus store on Victoria Street in Kitchener. It's been removed and sent with the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association to the Tillsonburg Regional Airport, where it will be a part of a memorial display there. It's fantastic. I loved the story, and I'm glad we could share it with you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Pictures, by the way, on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. Rant or Rave continues on The Mike Farwell Show here on 570 News Radio. Since I just heard the commercial during that last break, I will go to Nathan's emailed rant to Mike at 570news.com. Nathan writes, I keep hearing this ad authorized by the Conservatives talking about how the gas prices and food costs are more expensive under Prime Minister Carney. All right, I'm not trying to say that's not true, though I drive a pickup and I'm not paying $300 for gas as they suggest in the ad. But yes, gas is still expensive. But I don't like that they imply gas prices and food prices are all the Liberals' fault when there are obviously many other factors that are at play beyond the government's control. I'm not convinced that the Conservatives would have done anything different or even better, and I see this ad as a cheap shot to try and drum up some support and also a direct reflection of Pierre Poilievre's leadership. I think this may be part of the reason why he and his party have been failing as of late. Using generalized attacks like these, including during question periods and interviews, does not jive with many Canadians, I suspect, and it certainly doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't exactly give us faith that they would form an honest and useful government. If they stop the sloganeering and headline grabbing and start offering constructive criticism, I think they would be a lot more popular. That rant from Nathan via email to Mike at 570news.com. I hear you, Nathan, and obviously the attack ads or that style is not for you. It's been around for I don't know how long now. It's not my favorite approach either, but all parties have been known to use it over time for sure. Let's get back to the phones here on Talkback. It's Rant or Rave with Reed. Good afternoon, Reed.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Well, not too bad for a snowy Monday.
A snowy Monday on April the 20th. Let that sink in, eh?
Well, hey, I got two things to say. First of all, I think it's a sign as a guy who's been a Sabres fan since the day he was born that snow in April is when I'm hopefully going to win the Cup.
The Buffalo Sabres are going to win the Cup. Okay.
I hope.
All right.
I mean, you can always jump on the Sabres bandwagon there, Mike. I know your Leafs did really well on the golf course this year.
Wow. Gotta go there, eh?
I know. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It's totally fair.
Really quickly, I got two very big raves to say.
Okay.
One, to yourself. You have done a fantastic job covering the playoffs, keeping us informed. And I do got to say, I give you major props for doing that show on the road, on the bus. Fantastic idea. I got to say that.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Second is to your, now you might have to give me some help here. The driver, Moose. I believe that's his nickname.
That's his nickname.
I got to say, as a guy who drives a truck here and there for work, I know the trip up to the Sioux is god-awfully boring. I got to give him major props once again for getting the boys up to the Sioux and yourself safely.
He is, I mean, we love to tease him, and he's quite the character, but he is also an excellent driver. He's very good at what he does, and we don't know what we'd do without him after all these years. 9 years he's been with us.
He's a fantastic guy. I got to say, you have been doing a great job during the playoffs.
Really appreciate that, Reed. Thank you very much.
You have a great day, bud.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Great to hear from you. That's very nice. Thank you for raving about the work that we do here at the station and the excellent work that our Moosey, the bus driver for the Kitchener Rangers, does and has done for these past 9 years, making sure the club gets where it needs to be safely. We're just going to keep that going as we move on to Windsor now in these Western Conference playoffs. The Western Conference Championship opens Friday night at home. The Rangers taking on the Windsor Spitfires. And as somebody pointed out on our Facebook page, it's probably a good sign that a Spitfire is being removed from the roof of a building in Kitchener at the same time that the Rangers hope to remove the Spitfires hockey team from the playoffs. I like what you're thinking. And you can check out the pictures of that Spitfire on top of KW Surplus and the Memorial Garden that it is destined for on our Facebook page today, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. So there you go. Rant or Rave continues with our buddy Preston Paul, Farwell's Force member number 45. Good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon, Mike. I know you're good, so I want to ask you about that. A couple of raves. That Friday night game that you called was excellent. I got most to listen to it, so that was pretty good. And I love listening to our regular callers. On Friday, Kyle sounded like somebody stole his puppy, and I was so shocked to hear how low-key he was. And just to tell him to keep that enthusiasm up for the rest of his life, because I just love listening to it.
You know, it's a good reminder, Paul. The regulars on this show become sort of like supporting characters. And yes, Kyle is usually a very high-energy guy. We don't want to hear low-energy Kyle. We want Kyle, he's set the bar, so he's got to live up to it every time he calls.
I know, like, I was shocked at how low-key he was. I don't know if somebody scolded him, take it down a notch. I know it's still early, but keep that enthusiasm up. I love it.
Attaboy.
All right, you have a great day, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. You too. I do give Kyle a hard time because when he lets his big screams out, I should be ready to remove my headphones. But that's on me, just because I have headphones on and I listen to them at a fairly high volume. That's a me thing. That's not Kyle's fault. So just remember that, oh loyal and regular listener, you. When it comes to your participation in this show, especially if you're one of the regulars, the other regulars count on you to be a certain way. So, hey, listen, you can change your approach, but it's been noticed, Kyle, how low-key that you've been. Just back to Reed's call. I blanked on it before I answered Paul's, but Reed was saying there's room on the Buffalo Sabres bandwagon. That's not bad. Like, I can kind of get behind that bit of an underdog story, but sorry, I've already chosen my playoff team, and it's the Pittsburgh Penguins. Great start when they lost to Philly on the weekend, but I've decided I'm going with Sid the Kid. 21 straight years of a point per game. How the heck impressive is that, huh? And, so I'm going to cheer for the Penguins in the playoffs, as long as they're in, which might not be much longer the way it started, but that's my playoff team this year because we all know that my Leafs, yes, are out on the golf course. And I'm assuming their golf game is far better than their hockey game because their golf game gets a lot more work at this time of the year than their hockey game does, doesn't it? And that's as a Leafs fan, I'm saying that. George in Cambridge, 00 George, Farwell's Force member number 00. Hello.
Hello, Mike. I feel like I'm a secret agent or something for you, the 00 George.
I like it. 00 George is one of my favorites.
Mike, I don't know if you remember, I called you on Friday about the Richard family.
You did, and why am I already blanking on who? I think it was Mark called just before 12:30 and said, hey, I want to hear that story.
Well, here's why I said what I said on Friday. He had the gall to come on your show and say, look, the Sioux Greyhounds are going to win. And I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe he knows something we don't know. I mean, they could surprise everyone, but no. They did exactly what I thought. I thought it could go 4-0, maybe 4-1, and it did go 4-1. So I just wonder what he was talking about when he was so sure his Greyhounds would take the Rangers.
Well, I guess because he played for the Greyhounds, he is, right. He still bleeds red and white, I suppose.
Right,
yeah.
Right. I guess that's what happened, yep.
Okay, George, thanks for the call.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Appreciate it. Yes, we had Jeff Richards, cousin of Mike, former Rangers captain and Memorial Cup winner, on the show just as the Rangers Sioux series was getting started. And Jeff was actually here in town coaching his U13 Kenora Thistles at a provincial hockey championship being played at the Rec Center in Waterloo. And when he was on the show, we talked a little bit about his time in the OHL. Obviously, his cousin Mike, who's basically Kitchener Rangers royalty, isn't he? If Mike Richards isn't the next name added to the level of legacy at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, I might eat my shoe. I might. I'm not saying I will for sure, but I'd be pretty surprised if Mike Richards isn't the next name that goes up on that level of legacy with Pete DeBoer and Brian Bellows. But nonetheless, Kitchener Rangers royalty, cousin of Mike Richards, Jeff Richards, was on the show with us and said, Hounds in 6. And it turned out to be Rangers in 5. So George is like, what you talking about, Jeff Richards? That's my best Arnold Coleman? Gary Coleman on Different Strokes. What you talking about, Willis? And Rant or Rave continues. Your rants, your raves, our phone lines for you on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. On Mondays, your Talkback Hour is reserved for your rants and or raves. Rant because something has you upset. Rave because you're feeling great. You want to sing someone's or something's praises. We are here for it. Darren is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Darren.
Good afternoon. Okay, in a world with lots of angst, people worrying about so many things, stuff's expensive, there is one special little free treat, and it's called the advanced green. I'm convinced that Waterloo is the native word for afraid of flashing green lights. People don't go on the advanced green. And then the other side of it is when people are turning right onto a road where people are turning left onto the road they just came from, they're forming a natural protective shield. So the person turning right doesn't even have to worry. They've got they've checked there's no one coming. Plus they've got the protective shield from the cars turning left onto the road they just came from. And they should go on the right. They should take that right-hand turn. That's it. It's mystifying why people don't go on the green.
All right, Darren, listen, I appreciate the call. I like that you put a positive spin on it, the good old advanced green. I love me a good advanced green, except when it's advanced for the other side of the intersection, right? And then I feel like I'm waiting longer. Why should I wait longer at my red than they are waiting at theirs? But yes, when the light flashes, now that I think of it, how many of those do we actually have left? I feel like the arrow is almost everywhere now. The little green arrow that points you. Do we actually have the flashing? We probably do. I've been seeing them for so long, they all look the same now. But yes, please do as Darren suggests and turn left when that advanced green provides you the opportunity to do so. Kyle is with us once again on Rant or Rave. Kyle, are you okay?
Let's go, Rangers!
Attaboy.
Wow!
Listen, buddy, we just want to make sure that you're okay. And you have, my friend, set your own bar. So there you go. Know that the people expect it now. And Kyle already hung up. I will share this story again. Forgive me, but I've never forgotten it. It was my very first full-time radio job. And I had the opportunity. I was an evening and weekend guy. I was a music radio station. And I got the opportunity to do a daytime show, which is a pretty big deal. When you're the young kid and you're doing evenings and weekends and you get the chance to be on the air during the day on a weekday, that was a big, hairy deal. And it just so happened on that particular day, I wasn't feeling particularly well. And I was kind of complaining and kvetching on the air about not feeling well and whatnot. And after my show, my boss had a rule. He said he would never call me or talk to me during the show about anything because he doesn't want to throw me off. He'll wait till the end of the show, and he did. And at the end of that show, he said, listen, Farwell, he's like, nobody cares how you're feeling. All they care about is there's that familiar, warm voice on the other side of their radio speaker talking to them. So maybe just keep that stuff to yourself and give them what they deserve, right? Give them that familiar sound that they have grown accustomed to on our radio station and just dial it back a little bit with how miserable you're feeling. And I've never forgotten that. It's the promise of performance. It's getting up and doing the job, even when you don't feel 100% like doing the job, or you're not feeling 100%, whatever it happens to be. And once you establish that familiarity and that consistency, then you must continue to deliver on it. And we got used to Kyle being a rip-roaring, hockey yelling, sports loving fool, and he set the. Now we've come to expect it. I hope I continue to deliver at least some level of the consistency you've come to expect from me over these last 9 years. It's 9 years this June that we've been doing this show together. Rain, snow, sleet, hail. What was that stuff? Grousel falling from the air yesterday. Sick, healthy, whatever it is. We get together, we have our chats, and it's my job to keep doing it the same way. Maybe if I could only do it better, management would love that, but you get what you get, you don't get upset. Hopefully, you're getting relatively close to the same thing every damn day, including from Kyle. Tom, you're on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay. My thing with Carney, please don't believe anything. They haven't done anything yet. So, and with Polyev, he should let some of his ministers talk more. That lady Johnson, what's her name? She's really good. And the fella that went to the States to make a deal with local, let them in. But number one thing, don't ever bring Scheer or Harper. Okay, you look at those guys that you hate the whole party. That's the kind of I don't know, the kind of feelings they portray out.
All right, Tom. Some advice for Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, along with the advice to us to not listen to anything that Prime Minister Carney has to say. David Drew sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com. His rave is to the parked car he passed on the drive home, applying a fresh round of duct tape to reattach their rear bumper. Oh, I love it, Dave. I love it. And when David was here, we talked about Prime Minister Mark Carney and his forward guidance video. There was no pushback on it because he posted it himself on his YouTube channel, official channels of the Prime Minister's office. And Prime Minister Carney is sharing with us what he believes is the way forward. It's an interesting approach. I didn't love that the Prime Minister decided to just kind of skip past mainstream media and do this as a televised or a radio address of some kind. You thought, nope, I'm just going to post it on my YouTube channel. But some of what he had to say, and I think this was kind of the gist, this was the heart and soul of the nearly 10-minute message that we got online from our Prime Minister.
So here's the current situation. The world, as I said earlier, is more dangerous and divided. The U.S. has fundamentally changed its approach to trade, raising its tariffs to levels last seen during the Great Depression. Many of our former strengths, based on our close ties to America, have become our weaknesses that we must correct. Workers in our industries most affected by U.S. tariffs, in autos, in steel, in lumber, are under threat. Businesses are holding back investments, restrained by the pall of uncertainty that's hanging over all of us. The U.S. has changed, and we must respond. Canada Strong is our plan to build Canada by Canadians, for Canadians. It will attract new investment so we can build more for ourselves, striking new partnerships abroad so we can sell into new markets. It's about taking back control of our security, our borders, and our future. There are some who say there's no need for a comprehensive plan. They believe we should wait it out in the hope that the United States will return to normal, that the good old days will come back. But hope isn't a plan, and nostalgia is not a strategy.
Hope isn't a plan, and nostalgia isn't a strategy. And the United States will not return to quote-unquote normal. That, I think, formed the basis of Prime Minister Carney's online address. Again, it ran just under 10 minutes. He also talked about what he believes his government has accomplished in the past year when it comes to new trade partnerships forged. And he kind of gave a raw ending to it about, what this country is all about and how we became who we are. It was interesting stuff. I think the medium was the most curious because there was no pushback from reporters, from opposition members, or anything. I thought we might talk about it more on the show today, but we got into the Premier Ford plane thing, and I still have the audio, and we can talk more about it tomorrow, because the beauty of this show and this station is that we get 4 hours every single day to chat. And among the things we'll be talking about tomorrow on the show, how about a local housing corporation? What about a housing plan in the Hespeler part of Cambridge that not all residents nearby are that thrilled with? And who is Ella, and what does she hope to teach us about how tech is impacting our kids later this month at the Kitchener Public Library? All of that coming up on tomorrow's show. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9, and I invite you to be a part of the conversation. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.